Chapter 1331. Everyone's previous prediction came true. The war between the immortal court and the blessed lands of the White Lotus was much more intense and prolonged than before. 20 years passed, and the war between the two sides had yet to end. Before the war even started, the immortal court was already damaged, allowing the blessed lands of the White Lotus to continuously gain the upper hand, forcing them to retreat step by step. By retreating through space, the immortal court slowed down their opponents' progress and bought time for themselves. Gradually, the immortal court regained its footing. Shrinking their defensive line was beneficial for them to concentrate their forces. The blessed lands of the White Lotus clearly didn't wish to give up on this rare opportunity. As such, they surged forward like a tidal wave and continuously pressed forward. The immortal court once belonged to the same universe's territory. Now, they were locked in a stalemate with the blessed lands of the White Lotus. Both sides were constantly fighting against each other. During the war, countless heretic experts perished. Among them, there were plenty of immortal court experts who had attained the immortal physique, as well as blessed lands banties who had attained the golden body. If it were in the past, most of the wars would have already calmed down, and the situation would have stabilized. However, this time, the blessed lands of the White Lotus obtained a bountiful harvest, occupying worlds that originally belonged to the immortal court. 20 years wasn't much to martial art practitioners with high cultivation. However, to mortals and martial art practitioners with low cultivation, it was sufficient for an entire generation to grow. Evidently, the blessed lands of the White Lotus wanted to completely occupy these worlds, turning them into their own territories and nurture faith power that was becoming more stable. As time passed, the faith power of these newly occupied worlds would replenish the blessed lands of the White Lotus's depleted war potential, allowing them to continue fighting for a longer period of time. On the other hand, the immortal court wouldn't let it go so easily. Their strength was already weakened to begin with. If they were to take a step back, they would continue to be slower. It would be even more difficult for them to make a comeback. As such, they were extremely unyielding and fought against the blessed lands of the White Lotus to the end, fighting for every inch of land. During such a crucial moment, they couldn't afford to give up. No matter how difficult it was, they had to grit their teeth and persevere. As such, after 20 years, not only did the war between the two sides not end, but it had also persisted. From the looks of it, it wouldn't be a problem for them to continue fighting for another 20 years. The blessed lands and astral mountains, starry seas that were assisting the two sides were also opposing each other. According to Yen Zhaoga's latest intel, both sides had their own Taoism Heavenly Lord level experts fighting against each other, causing the heavens and earth to collapse. From the looks of it, the time is ripe for us to start planning our next steps. Within the Pill Hall's cosmos, Yen Zhaoga sat within the purple divine pavilion and looked around. The Astro Sovereign, Chen Xuanzong, and the Sword Sovereign, Yuzhen Bei, were both present. Yan Di and Nie Jingshen had already come out of seclusion. Feng Yunshen sat cross-legged, with her jet-black long saber placed on her knees. The Brocade Emperor, Fu Yunqi, sat directly opposite Yen Zhaoga. Thanks to the profound sovereign's arrangements, I have successfully met her in person. According to her, the incongruence Divine Mother is likely to tacitly agree to it, neither supporting nor interfering. It couldn't be any better. Yen Zhaoga smiled as he rubbed his palms together. In the past, when Yen Zhaoga intended to leave the Tao universe, he already had such thoughts. Not only the world beyond worlds and the eight extremities world, but even the roving jade heavens and the various lower realms under its rule were also brought away from the current Tao universe. Although it was not convenient for them to move around at the moment, they had to rely on the roving jade heavens to gather information. If the roving jade heavens were to leave the Tao universe, it would be much less convenient for them. However, in comparison, Yen Zhaoge was more inclined towards everyone leaving the Tao universe. For the profound sovereign and the others who had always been unyielding, they would have less to worry about, and they would be able to do whatever they wanted. It wasn't that Yen Zhaoge was overjoyed. Instead, a very realistic problem was placed right in front of them. The pill hall was currently drifting by the void's outskirts, and it was hard to locate them. If someone invaded the roving jade heavens in order to locate Yen Zhaoge and the others, should Yen Zhaoge and the others help them when the situation became dangerous, the other party didn't have to target the entire roving jade heavens. They only had to target the profound sovereign and the Dragon Spring Emperor's family. Although the incongruence Divine Mother was still around, she wasn't completely unrestrained. Not mentioning the immeasurable Heavenly Lord and the future Buddha, the demon race and the Orthodox Buddhism had reappeared. The news had already been confirmed, and both sides had grand heavenly immortal realm experts. The Buddhas of the Pure Lands and the demon race's great sages were existences that were completely different from the heretic heavenly immortals. Although both sides were currently fighting against each other, it wasn't like the blessed lands of the White Lotus and the immortal quartz bloodbath. No matter if it was the Pure Lands or the Astro Mountains' starry seas, they still had sufficient strength to react. They were keeping an eye on the 9 underworlds as well as Suo, Mingzhang, the incongruence Divine Mother, and the others, the Pure Lands and the Astro Mountains' starry seas that had been hiding from the world finally decided to make a move. They even teamed up with the Immortal Court and the blessed lands of the White Lotus. Yen Zhaoge couldn't help but think of the worst-case scenario. As such, he was determined to bring the roving jade heavens along with him. Theoretically speaking, as long as the profound sovereign and the Dragon Spring Emperor's lineage left the roving jade heavens, their enemies wouldn't intentionally target the roving jade heavens just to search for Yen Zhaoge and the Pill Hall. However, if they were to leave, why not bring along the roving jade heaven's massive amount of resources and population? The profound sovereign's lineage had an extremely strong control over the roving jade heavens. With their cooperation, everything would be much smoother. Even the Cloud Conquest Emperor and the others wouldn't object. Their hostility towards the world beyond worlds had more to do with the ideals of the world beyond worlds ruled by the earthly sovereign. If there was a problem, it would be the grudge between the sword sovereign, Yu Xinbei, and the roving jade heavens. However, just like how they were separated into the roving jade heavens and the world beyond worlds in the Tao universe, the situation would be the same after entering the Pill Hall's cosmos. Although the prime clear lineage was related to the sword sovereign, if there was a new environment where they could get rid of the heretics threat, it would naturally be the best choice. To Yen Zhaoge, this was also a chance to resolve the conflict between the two sides. He didn't want the profound sovereign and the Dragon Spring Emperor's lineage to be stuck in the middle. Although the pill chi within the cosmos formed by the Pill Hall had yet to dissipate, and the boundaries had yet to stabilize, the situation had already changed greatly. Yen Zhaoge said to everyone, "Now, there's already room for more roving jade heavens to gather the various lower realms." Previously, the Pill Hall's cosmos was unstable. It was already difficult for it to accommodate the various lower realms like the world beyond worlds and the 8 extremities world. However, after 20 years of development, under Yen Zhaoge's tireless refinement, it was no longer comparable to the past. In reality, all these years, Yen Zhaoge had combined the refinement of the Pill Hall with his own cultivation. As the Pill Hall's cosmos stabilized, not only did he gain more control over the Pill Hall, he could also clearly feel that the moment for him to take the final step in his current realm was approaching. The time to sweep the roving jade heavens away was finally ripe. If that's the case, my main body shall remain in the Pill Hall, and my clone shall head to the roving jade heavens. Yen Zhaoga looked at everyone and said, slowly, source, please remember this book's domain name. U8's official website, chapter 1332. Others might be fine, but householder Zeding. The astro-sovereign, Chen Xuanzong, slightly frowned. Householder Zeding was the old ancestor of the roving jade heavens, the vine sovereign. In terms of seniority, she was the highest person in the roving jade heavens. The roving jade seven sons, who had established the roving jade heavens in the past, were all people born after the great calamity, rising experts of Taoism. Only the vine sovereign was like the earthly sovereign Jiangshen, the exalted solar luminary Gaohan, and the others. She was a senior expert who had lived before the great calamity. However, when the roving jade heavens was established, she was injured, so she did not participate. Unlike the time when Jiangshen guided Xiao Junhuang and the others, they were considered half-master and half-friend. More than half of the roving Jade Seven were the Vine Sovereign's personal disciples. Although the Vine Sovereign had been in seclusion all year round to recuperate, her influence in the roving Jade Heavens was still considerable. Regarding the world beyond worlds, especially regarding the descendants of the exalted gold luminary, Yen Xintang, the profound sovereign, had many disagreements with her master. Correspondingly, the profound sovereign would mostly follow the Vine Sovereign's opinion on other matters. Only, the thing that the Vine Sovereign was brooding over the most was the world beyond worlds, Kunlun Mountains Jade, capital crag apart from the revival of Taoism and the grudges with the heretics. The Sword Sovereign, Yu Zhenbei's expression turned serious when he heard that. He turned around and looked at Yen Zhaoga. Senior Apprentice Uncle Yu, Senior Chen, there's no need to worry. Yen Zhaoga smiled. No matter what happens, the Vine Sovereign won't be able to do anything to me. Currently, the battle between the heretics is as intense as a raging fire, according to past experiences, because they are restraining each other. Senior Suwa, the Incongruence Divine Mother, the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor, the North Star Emperor, and the others have more freedom to move around. With this, although the Pure Lands of Bliss and the demon race might still pay attention to us, it'll undoubtedly be more convenient for us to move around. We might even receive the Incongruence Divine Mother and the others' protection. When the battle between the heretics had calmed down, their attention would most likely shift towards Yen Zhaoga. It was even possible to send a large number of people to search the outer realms. Therefore, this was a good opportunity. Still, we cannot let down our guard. The more it is, at a time like this, the better the chance for us to move about. Those who intend to find us are often also waiting for us to show ourselves. Yen Di said now. Yen Zhaoga nodded. That's right, it is precisely so. He looked at the brocade emperor, Fu Yunqi, the roving jade heavens, as well as the vicinity of the remaining world beyond worlds, have many spies keeping an eye on us. They are waiting for us to contact them and attempt to follow them to find the whereabouts of the Pill Hall. If it weren't for our meticulous planning and the roving jade heavens' profound sovereign's arrangements, I'm afraid we would have been discovered long ago. Fu Yunqi agreed. He was always alone, which was also very conspicuous. Apart from Fu Yunqi, there were also others who took turns to travel and communicate with the outside world. As Yen Zhaoga refined the Pill Hall deeper and deeper, he was able to control it more and more freely. He was also able to conceal the fact that his family members were coming and going. However, the other party had never lost their patience. More than one group of people were watching in the dark. This Pill Hall has given us a temporary safe and comfortable environment. However, there are two sides to every coin. Yen Zhaoga looked at the purple divine pavilion that he was currently in. A man's wealth is his own ruin. Because of the Pill Hall, many people are targeting us. When I return to the Tao universe and attempt to sweep away the roving jade heavens, the commotion will definitely be huge. Yen Zhaoge stroked his chin and said, "It's better to create a diversion and sneak in." First, he would create some commotion and divert the other party's attention. Then, he would end the battle quickly. After sweeping away the roving jade heavens, he would leave the Tao universe and hide within the void's boundless outskirts. Even if he couldn't divert all of the other party's attention, as long as a portion of it was diverted, the possibility of success would increase by a lot. Yujinbei said slowly, "I'll go." This would save them from awkwardness when the pill hall absorbs the roving jade heavens. "Jinbei, your goal is too obvious. If you try to cover it up, it'll only make others suspicious." Qin Xuanzong shook his head and said, "Let me go." During these years, he would occasionally go out alone. His main purpose was to search for Jie Mingkong and Chu Lily. "Old Chen, your situation is similar to Yunqing's. You might even be more worried." Yu Jinbei said, "The 9 underworlds is also keeping an eye on you." Chun Xuanzong shook his head. "It's fine. I know what I'm doing." Yu Jinbei didn't say anything else. "Thank you, Senior Chun." Yen Zhaoge cupped his hands towards Chun Xuanzong. Then he said to the others, "My North Ocean clone will enter the roving jade heavens. If everything goes smoothly, I'll need some time to prepare. There might be a battle at that time. Let's cultivate quietly and wait for the right time. It's better to be prepared." Feng Yinsheng, Yen Di, and Nie Jingshin nodded calmly. Their expressions didn't change at all. Yen Zhaoge's side shook slightly, and a tall figure appeared. It was the North Ocean clone. The North Ocean clone bowed towards the Brocade Emperor. "Fu Yinqi, Brocade Emperor, I'll have to trouble you to follow me to the roving jade heavens again. There's no need to be so polite. If the fallen deity is done with his preparations, let's go," said Fu Yunqi. As such, Yen Zhaoge's North Ocean clone left the Purple Divine Pavilion together with the Brocade Emperor. Then, they left the cosmos formed by the Pill Hall. The two didn't return to the Tao universe. Instead, they stayed by the void's boundless outskirts. According to their previous agreement, someone would come and fetch them. Then, they would be brought back to the Tao universe. Yen Zhaoge and Fu Yunqi concealed their figures and waited patiently. After an unknown period of time, a sword light suddenly came from afar. When Yen Zhaoge and Fu Yunqi saw the sword light, they remained calm and gave a hidden hint. The sword light didn't slow down. Instead, it swept Yen Zhaoge and Fu Yunqi along as it passed by them. Then, it continued flying away with lightning speed. Within the void's outskirts, the changes of space were complicated. It was hard to determine the direction. The sword light didn't even change its direction. It just continued flying around within the void. Along the way, it didn't stop for long. It even took some rare ores that could only be found in the void's outskirts. In the end, it returned to the Tao universe with a satisfied look. After entering the Tao universe, the sword light didn't stop. It continued moving forward and finally landed in the roving jade heavens. The sword light danced and landed in a cave manner within the mountains. Only then did the sword light stop. After the radiance dissipated, an old Taoist with untidy hair was revealed. It was the Cloud Conquest Emperor, whom Yen Zhaoge had met once before. This place wasn't the Cloud Emperor's cave manor, the Ashen Spirit Valley. There were other people in the cave manor, other than Gao Shuebua and Long Shueji, whom Yen Zhaoge was extremely familiar with. There was also a handsome man who looked to be in his 30s or 40s. Although it was the first time they met, Yen Zhaoge had seen his portrait too many times. The Jade Clear lineage, the exalted gold luminary, Yen Xintang's junior apprentice brother, the Dragon Spring Emperor who had been residing in the roving jade heavens, Long Xingchuan. Source: please remember this book's domain name. You ate official website mobile version. Chapter 1333. Senior Apprentice Uncle Long, I've never had the chance to meet you. Today, I finally meet you. However, I came with my clone. Please forgive me for my lack of manners. Yen Zhaoga smiled as he looked at Long Xingchuan. Seeing Yen Zhaoga's appearance, Long Xingchuan retracted his casual expression and smiled as well. It's fine. We'll meet again one day. He looked at Yen Zhaoga and said emotionally, you and your father are so outstanding. If senior apprentice brother and junior apprentice sister D knew about it, they'd be very happy. He sighed softly, and his gaze was filled with melancholy. Gao Xuebua and Long Xueji stood by the side and remained silent. A complex expression also surfaced within the Cloud Conquest Emperor's gaze. His impression of the sword god, Yen Xintang, who suppressed the entire roving Jade Heavens in the past, was naturally very complex. As for the sword emperor Di Qinglian, although they weren't from the same sect, he still felt that it was a pity. Yen Zhaoga looked at the dragon spring emperor in front of him. This was the first time he saw him in person. Speaking of which, he could be considered a legendary figure. In the eyes of some people in the world beyond worlds, the Dragon Spring Emperor had a bad impression of him. As someone of the Jade Clear lineage, he chose to join the Prime Clear lineage's roving Jade Heavens. In the words of some people, he was basically a son-in-law. Regarding the profound sovereign and the Dragon Spring Emperor's relationship, the female was stronger than the male. However, those who truly understood the situation would scoff at such words. It was true that the Dragon Spring Emperor was defeated by the profound sovereign's sword. However, the problem was how many people like the profound sovereign were there. Most of the juniors who had risen later on remembered that the Dragon Spring Emperor had been defeated by the profound sovereign. However, few of them remembered that before the duel with the profound sovereign, Long Xingchuan had defeated all the other sword cultivators in the roving Jade Heavens. In terms of sword arts, he had won 9 battles and 9 victories, including the Cloud Conquest Emperor who was beside him and the lofty sovereign, Zhang Buxu, who had yet to leave the roving Jade Heavens. They were all defeated by the Dragon Spring Emperor. In the same realm, even the new Kunlun 9 luminaries wouldn't dare to say that they could defeat the Dragon Spring Emperor. Senior Apprentice Uncle Long, can I meet the profound sovereign now? After greeting Long Xingchuan, the Cloud Conquest Emperor, Long Xueji, and Gao Xuebua, Yen Zhaoga asked, Qingxian is currently in the Vine Sovereign's cave residence, said the Dragon Spring Emperor. Emperor Yin did not say anything, but Gao Xuebua frowned slightly. Long Xueji did not conceal anything as he straightforwardly said, there is some resistance from the old patriarch. Mother is currently trying to persuade him. Zhaoga and fellow Taoist Fu, please follow me. The Dragon Spring Emperor walked out of the cave dwelling. As he walked, he waved his hand. Qingxian and the Vine Sovereign already knew that you were coming. They said that after you arrived at the roving Jade Heavens, you can directly go to their side. Yen Zhaoga and Fu Yunqi both nodded. The guest follows the host's wishes. The group traversed through the green Duckweed Mountain and soon arrived at the foot of the main peak. This was one of the 2 sovereigns of the roving Jade Heavens, the Vine Sovereign Li Ying's Dao arena and cave residence. The boy guarding the entrance had clearly received orders beforehand. Upon seeing Yen Zhaoga, Long Xingchuan, and the others' arrival, he immediately opened the door and welcomed them inside. In the green Duckweed Mountain, spiritual energy flowed, showing off its sharpness. The formless spiritual energy was like a tangible sharp sword, constantly cutting and piercing. And at the main peak, it was even more obvious. After entering the cave dwelling, 2 ladies turned their heads and looked towards Yen Zhaoga and the others. On the main seat sat an old lady in her 60s. However, her appearance was still as elegant as before. Every single strand of her silver hair was combed neatly, and faint silver radiances flickered within. Every time the radiances on her hair flickered, it was as if lightning streaked across the sky, and a treasured sword was unsheathed. Her gaze was even sharper. Wherever her gaze passed by, time and space would be sliced apart. Vine Sovereign Li Ying said Yan Zhaoge in his heart. Fu Yunqi, who was by the side, was no stranger to this famed prime clear long-time elder. She was a prime clear lineage expert who was born before the Great Calamity. Due to her grief, she didn't participate in the establishment of the roving Jade Heavens. However, her reputation within the roving Jade Heavens was still unrivaled. Although the profound sovereign, Gao Qingxian, had surpassed her, the Vine Sovereign was still one of the two profound immortal sovereigns of the roving Jade Heavens. No one dared to look down on her. Due to her old trauma, she had been stuck in the profound immortal realm for thousands of years. She couldn't break through the profound origin tribulation and achieve the 5 Qis unification realm. Moreover, within these 1,000 years, she had been in seclusion for at least 800 years. Even so, she was still a veteran expert who cultivated qi into aura with 4 qis augmented within her body. However, if Yan Zhaoge were to say it, he would feel that the greatest ability of this old lady before him was in teaching disciples. In other words, she had great foresight when accepting disciples. In the past, one of the new Kunlun 9 luminaries, the Exalted Earth Luminary, who was later known as the Earthly Sovereign, Jiangshen, was known for not having any sectarian bias. He was known for his willingness to guide the younger martial art practitioners. To be fair, most of the top-notch experts that rose after the establishment of the world beyond worlds had received Jiangshen's guidance. This included Xiao Junhuang and the others who were younger than him among the new Kunlun 9 luminaries. However, perhaps Jiangshen's luck wasn't good, or perhaps he wasn't focused on his Qilin cliff. Instead, he focused his attention on the entire world beyond worlds. Among his personal disciples, there was only a limited number of them. There was only the Earth Exalt, Wang Zhengcheng. Of course, although Wang Zhengcheng wasn't able to push open the immortal door, it was because of his old injuries. Otherwise, he would have already stepped into the immortal realm. However, compared to the Vine Sovereign's disciples, the Earthly Sovereign's disciples seemed rather weak. In fact, compared to the Vine Sovereign's disciples, the others seemed rather weak. In the world beyond worlds, the Exalted Gold Luminary, Yan Xintang's disciples included the Sword Sovereign, Yu Jinbei, the Exalted Water Luminary. Chen Xuanzong's disciples included Jieminkong and Chu Lili, and the Exalted Wood Luminary, Xiao Juanhuang's disciples included the Bright Connection Emperor, Hu Yuexin. However, all of them combined couldn't compare to the Vine Sovereign's disciples. In the past, among the roving Jade 7, 4 of them were the Vine Sovereign's personal disciples. Other than the profound sovereign Gao Qingxian and the lofty sovereign Zhang Buxu, there was also the Tai Sovereign. He was the second strongest among the roving Jade 7, only inferior to the profound sovereign. Unfortunately, he died at a young age during the battle against the heretics. Another person had the cultivation of a true immortal, and he died even earlier. He perished not long after the roving Jade Heavens was established. Other than the roving Jade 7 sons, there was also the Sword Emperor Di Qinglian, whose reputation wasn't inferior in the slightest. She had dominated the entire roving Jade Heavens with a single sword, and was the #1 expert in sword arts amongst the new post-Great Calamity era experts. After Di Qinglian, the Vine Sovereign had another personal disciple, Emperor Heng Kong Qingxi. He perished in the hands of Yu Jinbei, who was still a true immortal at that time. He had also ascended to the immortal realm and pushed open the immortal door. The Vine Sovereign, Li Ying, could be proud of having 3 sovereigns and 3 emperors. Whether it was due to luck or ability, Yan Zhaoge felt that this old Grand Master of the roving Jade Heavens was truly a legendary figure. Unfortunately, this legendary figure had never gotten along well with his family's bloodline. Currently, the Vine Sovereign didn't reveal any special emotions. She was only staring at Yan Zhaoge, Yan Xintang's descendant. Source: please remember the domain name of this book. U8 official website for mobile version. Chapter 1334. Yan Zhaoge didn't evade the Vine Sovereign's gaze. He calmly nodded. Greetings, Vine Sovereign. My ancestor is the exalted gold luminary. The descendant of a famed clan surpasses his ancestors. The Vine Sovereign didn't continue talking about Yan Zhaoge's origins. She just appraised Yan Zhaoge's Northern Ocean clone, a clone already at the 9th level of the Martial Saint realm. Your main body should already not be far from ascending into the immortal realm now, right? Or has he already taken the final step? Yan Zhaoge answered candidly, I still lack the final step. Still, I have the confidence to take that step within a few days. You came here for the matter of the roving jade, heavens moving away from the Tao universe. This means that your control over refining the pill hall has become stronger, and the universe formed by the pill hall has become more stable. The Vine Sovereign looked at Yan Zhaoge and said, Are you planning to use the pill hall to officially establish a new world, and at the same time take the final step? The Vine Sovereign's eyes are truly sharp. Yan Zhaoge smiled. That's exactly what I'm planning to do. Such an opportunity did not come by often. If not for the help of the pill hall, Yan Zhaoge wouldn't have been able to do it in his current realm. This fortuitous encounter was extremely beneficial to his cultivation of the heaven opening scripture. At the same time, it would be of great help to his progress in cultivating the 3 pure Daos. The path he was walking on was more difficult to cultivate than others. When it came to breaking through the barrier between immortal and mortal, it was even more difficult. Now that he had this opportunity, it was undoubtedly a blessing from the heavens. As long as he used it properly, it would save him a lot of time and energy. Shortcuts were not easy to take. Either it was not that one could not obtain it, or it was that there were hidden dangers. However, this time, Yan Zhaoge had encountered a shortcut that was not only harmless, instead being beneficial to his long-term cultivation. Such an opportunity was hard to come by in 1,000 years or even in 10,000 years. Back then, he had taken a huge risk to get rid of the pill hall's hall spirit. Now, the fruits of his harvest were finally ripening one after another. Hearing Yan Zhaoge admit this matter, while everyone here had already vaguely guessed it, they still felt complex emotions within their hearts at this moment, even feeling slightly shocked. The Cloud Conquest Emperor had experienced thousands of years of trials and tribulations. He already knew how extraordinary Yan Zhaoge was. However, he still couldn't help but sigh. He was one of the founders of the roving jade heavens that everyone was currently in. He had personally experienced the era of darkness and light. Now, another new world was about to appear. The younger generation will surpass us in time, as expected of the banished immortal. The Vine Sovereign nodded. Then she looked at Yan Zhaoge and said calmly, I know that your intentions were good. For the roving jade heavens, if you could enter the pill hall and float within the void's boundless outskirts, the heretic demons wouldn't be able to locate you. However, just like when you left the Tao universe in the past, this isn't something that can be done in one go. At that time, it will definitely attract the attention of your enemies. The Vine Sovereign shook her head and said, At that time, the enemy's attack will be disadvantageous to both you and the roving jade heavens. She stared at Yan Zhaoge. Although there are some conflicts between us, We're still part of the three clear lineage. Since you've obtained the Heavenly Court's divine palaces, Pill Hall, you have to be more careful lest you end up benefiting the evil sections. If I enter the Pill Hall, I might attract the attention and pursuit of more opponents. Yen Zhaoge said, however, allow me to be frank. If the roving Jade Heavens were to remain within this cosmos, we would be targeted by our enemies. The relationship between my father, the profound sovereign, and senior apprentice Uncle Long isn't a secret to others. In order to find us and the Pill Hall, our enemies would naturally target the roving Jade Heavens. Everything happened because of me. I'm deeply sorry for implicating your sect. However, other than what I'm doing now, I can't think of any other way to remedy the situation. Yen Zhaoge cupped his hands towards the prime clear bigwigs and said with a solemn expression. The profound sovereign, Gao Qingxian, slowly shook her head. Such things are unavoidable. You don't have to blame yourself. Although she was sitting below the vine sovereign and didn't reveal any aura, this green-clothed woman's presence was still the strongest. When Yen Zhaoge entered the cave manor, she was the first person he noticed. The profound sovereign, Gao Qingxian, was currently the #1 expert in the roving Jade Heavens. She could also be said to be the #1 prime clear lineage martial art practitioner after the Great Calamity. There was no need to talk about her strength. Just her title alone was enough to explain everything. Ever since Suo Mingzhang's 5 Qis unifications and was no longer a profound immortal, Gao Qingxuan's title had changed from Whirlpool Sovereign to Profound Sovereign. This wasn't her own change. Instead, it was the consensus of the others. At the very least, most of them tacitly agreed to it. The more top-notch an expert was, the more arrogant they would be. Unless the disparity between the two parties was confirmed to be too huge, no matter how famous their opponents were. Who would dare to say that they would definitely win or lose without personally fighting against them? As such, Gao Qingxuan's title of Profound Sovereign was even more dreadful than Yu Xinbei's title of Sword Sovereign. Profound Sovereign referred to the strongest profound immortal, a sovereign amongst sovereigns. However, ever since others started addressing her as Profound Sovereign, Gao Qingxuan's position remained unshakable. Thank you for your understanding, Profound Sovereign. I'm ashamed. Yen Zhaoge nodded towards Gao Qingxian. In the past, the Profound Sovereign, Gao Qingxian was the closest to his grandmother, Di Qinglian, in the entire roving Jade Heavens. Di Qinglian's demise had left Gao Qingxian heartbroken. However, she didn't vent her anger on Yen Xintang's lineage like the Vine Sovereign did. Instead, she mediated between the two sides. Part of it was because of the Dragon Spring Emperor, but it was also because she missed her junior apprentice sister, Di Qinglian. According to Gao Qingxuan's knowledge, although her junior apprentice sister had died young, the thing she was most proud of wasn't dominating the universe with her sword. Instead, it was having a harmonious relationship with her husband, Yen Xintang. If that's the case, the deceased was already gone. Leaving the living with regrets wasn't something the deceased wished to see. Although the Sword Sovereign, Yu Xinbei's relationship with the roving Jade Heavens was extremely bad, he still respected the Profound Sovereign, Gao Qingxian. Yen Zhaoge naturally remembered the Profound Sovereign and the Dragon Spring Emperor's friendships. His immortal trapping sword manual was given to him by the Profound Sovereign's family. Currently, the two heretics, the demon race, and the Orthodox Buddhism are fighting against each other. To us, the environment is relatively relaxed. It's the perfect time to act. Yen Zhaoge said, currently our enemies are only monitoring the Tao universe, the roving Jade Heavens, and the world beyond worlds. However, it's hard to say when they would make a move. He turned around and looked towards the Vine Sovereign. Although our enemies wouldn't completely annihilate our orthodox Taoism unless it's absolutely necessary, they would only target a few people. Most likely, they wouldn't have any qualms as long as they can hold back the incongruence Divine Mother. The Pure Lands and the demon race had resurfaced. Even the incongruence Divine Mother had to be wary of the experts hidden within. Currently, there were already grand, heavenly, immortal level bigwigs participating in the war. No one could guarantee that there wouldn't be other experts of the same level. Chapter 1335. 3 clear grandmasters. Please forgive disciple Yen Zhaoga's rudeness. Yen Zhaoga said slowly, Vine Sovereign, you've personally experienced the great calamity. There's something I'd like to verify with you. The Vine Sovereign's expression was calm. Based on Yen Zhaoga's previous words, she seemed to have guessed what Yen Zhaoga wanted to ask. Yen Zhaoga didn't avoid it, and looked straight at the Vine Sovereign who lived before the great calamity. Is the Elder Lord still alive? With just a short sentence, the entire room became silent. Everyone's breathing seemed to have paused for a moment. The 2 words, Elder Lord, seemed random. However, as members of the 3 clear lineage, everyone knew what Yen Zhaoga was referring to. The Elder Lord was referring to the Supreme Elder Lord, the Grand Clear Lord of Tao and virtue of the 3 clear Grandmasters. You're asking if the Elder Lord appeared during the Great Calamity. The Vine Sovereign's face was expressionless, and her tone was faintly discernible. Yen Zhaoga answered honestly, yes. When the Great Calamity had just arrived, as a part of the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace, he had lost his consciousness along with the destruction of the Divine Palace's martial repository. After that, many years had passed since he reawakened in the 8 Extremities world. Yen Zhaoga didn't have any relevant memories regarding the Great Calamity. Back then, the Vine Sovereign's cultivation wasn't high, and her knowledge was limited. However, the current Vine Sovereign had a special identity. Moreover, she had interacted with the incongruence Divine Mother more than once. Perhaps she already had some understanding of the past. In fact, she might even have a deeper understanding of the past compared to Gao Qingxian, Suo Mingzhang, and Chen Xuanzong. Yen Zhaoga looked at the Brocade Emperor. Fu Yunqi, Brocade Emperor, the origins of your lineage can be traced back to a very long time ago. The founding Grand Master had once listened to the Elder Lord's teachings in the Tushita Palace for a period of time. However, he had left the Tushita Palace for too long. As such, he wasn't clear about the Tushita Palace's situation, as well as the Elder Lord's situation during the Great Calamity. After the Great Calamity, all the past Grand Masters had tried to find a path to return to the Tushita Palace, but to no avail. Fu Yunqi shook his head. The Vine Sovereign looked at Yen Zhaoga and Fu Yunqi quietly. After a long while, she said, Back then, my cultivation was still shallow. It was all thanks to the Divine Mother's protection that I managed to escape. As such, I naturally wouldn't know about the situation outside. Still, after the Great Calamity, I once heard the Divine Mother mention that the Elder Lord had not acted during the Great Calamity. She said word by word. However, according to the goddess, the Grand Supreme Elder is still alive. Yen Zhaoga nodded, looking thoughtful. The Vine Sovereign said slowly, However, no one can figure out the Elder Lord's thoughts. We can't figure it out, and neither can the heretical cultivators. Yen Zhaoga said softly, If the Lord of Tao and virtue had truly transcended, he might be able to understand. Tao, Tian Tian Tao Sovereign. Tao Sovereign's Yang, Yang Yang Tao's Lord, Li's Yang Yang's Yang. Hu, Tao, Hu Chun, and on God. Tian, and on Shen Yang Yang Yen Chen on Tian on Tao and God. On Yen Yang. There was essentially no difference between doing nothing and doing everything. If he was willing to be impartial, then the 3 clear lineage would be no different from the Buddhist sect and the outer Taoists to him. But no one could tell what he was thinking. What was even harder to judge was whether he would suddenly change his mind. Compared to this big shot, Qianhua's so-called unpredictable thoughts were just child's play. But if he has really transcended, why is he still in this world? I don't see Heavenly Lord of Primordial Beginning or Heavenly Lord of Numinous Treasure either. A long time ago, Yan Zhaoge had found something strange. After the Great Calamity, the orthodox Taoism had many things to do. On the other hand, the heretics, be it the Immortal Court or the blessed lands of the White Lotus, were in their prime. Under such circumstances, it was still fine for the earthly sovereign of the world beyond worlds to act in a moderate manner. But why hadn't the heretics made up their mind to eradicate the roving jade heavens, which had always been radical, after knowing that Taoism's grand heavenly immortals like the North Star Emperor, the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor, and the incongruous Divine Mother were still alive? He thought that he had found the answer. After all, the existence of at least 3 Taoism grand heavenly immortals might threaten the Immortal Court and the blessed lands of the White Lotus rule. Once they succeeded, they would be able to cause a devastating massacre to the heretic martial artists and even the people beneath the future Buddha and the immeasurable Heavenly Lord. Even if the future Buddha and the immeasurable Heavenly Lord took revenge, their losses would be hard to recover. If one side suffered a huge loss, it would naturally give the other side an opportunity to take advantage of. After all, they were mortal enemies to begin with. Suo Mingzhang's ascension to the grand heavenly immortal realm 20 years ago and the ongoing war had proven this point. As such, unless it was absolutely necessary, the heretics wouldn't go all out against the Tao universe. Weakening the orthodox Taoism's control within a certain range was the best choice, similar to rearing sheep and shearing sheep. That should be the case. However, after knowing that not only did the demon race hide and recuperate, but the Western Pure Lands also existed, Yan Zhaoge felt that something was amiss. Although the demon race and Orthodox Buddhism had never entered the world, they were merely waiting for the right time to strike. With them secretly restraining the heretics, the incongruous Divine Mother, and the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor's threat towards the heretics was greatly weakened. Suo Mingzhang's origin, heavenly tribulation, and ascended to the grand heavenly immortal realm was a rather unexpected event, which resulted in its influence lasting until now. If that's the case, how did the Tao universe remain so stable before Suo Mingzhang ascended to the grand heavenly immortal realm? Yan Zhaoge had been thinking about these questions. Then he thought about his experiences in the heavenly court's divine palace before the Great Calamity. The Great Calamity had always been engraved in his heart. Other than that, there were a few other things. These rumors weren't considered secrets before the Great Calamity. They were considered as some of the more famous unsolved mysteries. Everyone was curious about it, but no one knew the true answer. Perhaps some of the top-notch existences within the universe knew part of the truth. Many mysteries were created by their own hands for various reasons. Other things aside, there was one thing that caught Yan Zhaoge's attention. After all, it was related to the Great Calamity and the decline of Orthodox Taoism. Was the Supreme Elder Lord still in existence? This question seemed very baffling at first. Everyone knew that the 3 clear lineages transcended as one. With the 3 clear Grand Masters' transcendence, the ancient investitures of the gods era ended, and the universe era changed, entering the middle journey to the West era. However, there was something that puzzled many people. After the Jade Clear Primordial Heavenly Lord and the Prime Clear Numinous Treasure, Heavenly Lord had transcended during the ancient investitures of the gods era. They didn't appear in the world. However, the Grand Clear Tao and Virtue Heavenly Lord, who was also the Supreme Elder Lord, had appeared in front of everyone during the middle journey to the West era. Chapter 1336. Why did the grand, clear, heavenly Lord of Tao and virtue, who had already transcended, still exist in this world? Such a contradictory matter naturally caused many people to be suspicious. This was one of the greatest mysteries in the history of this world. It was so strange that people could not help but wonder if Taishang Laojun, who had appeared during the journey to the West era and resided in the Tushita Palace of Lihan Heaven, was the real Lord of Tao and virtue towards such a great figure. Everyone's doubts were naturally buried in the bottom of their hearts, and they did not dare to voice it out. However, after the journey to the West era and entering the New era, the Grand Supreme Elder no longer appeared in the world, and there was little news about him. Therefore, everyone became even more uncertain. Yen Zhaoge had received news from the Heavenly Court's divine palace before the Great Calamity. There had once been a bigwig expert who went to the Tushita Palace to meet the Elder Lord, which proved that the Elder Lord was still alive before the Great Calamity. However, after the Great Calamity, the orthodox Taoism had withered away. More and more people questioned whether the Grand Supreme Elder was still alive. Yen Zhaoge had once doubted it as well, leaning more towards disbelief. Many things in the history and legends of this world were specious and difficult to verify. If anyone believed everything without a doubt, they would only be digging their own grave. Thus, Yen Zhaoge often reminded himself that many of the myths and legends in his past memories could at most be used as a reference. He definitely could not forcibly apply them to this world and use them as reliable intelligence. Otherwise, his empiricism would really bring him harm. For a period of time, Yen Zhaoge had suspected that the Elder Lord of the journey to the West era actually didn't exist, and that someone was impersonating him. However, a figure like the Grand Supreme Elder was probably not someone that could be measured by ordinary logic. Comparing the actions of the Immortal Court, the blessed lands of the White Lotus, the blessed lands of the Pure Lands, and the Astral Mountains' Starry Sea, one could vaguely tell that if they did not have any special intentions, they would be wary of completely annihilating the orthodox Taoism lineage. However, no matter how Yen Zhaoge thought about it, there was only one existence that could cause them to feel apprehensive: the grand, pure, heavenly Lord of virtue and virtue, Old Lord Taishang. The internal strife of the Heavenly Court's divine palace in the past might not be that simple. Yen Zhaoge thought darkly. The Grand Supreme Elder's thoughts were hard to fathom. Most of the time, he was a neutral bystander. However, if others had forcefully suppressed the orthodox Tao sects that had yet to decline at that time, perhaps the Grand Supreme Elder would have changed his attitude. However, if there was internal strife in the Tao sect, the possibility of the Grand Supreme Elder caring would be much lower. However, it was unknown why the situation had escalated to the point where the universe had shattered. As Yen Zhaoge sorted through the clues on hand, many thoughts flashed through his mind as many guesses arose. However, he suppressed his guesses and calmly faced the Vine Sovereign. It's hard for us to understand the Elder Lord's thoughts. Now that the Western Pure Lands and the demon race have reappeared, we don't know if Amitabha is still around. We also don't know which supreme expert in the demon race is presiding over the situation. We still need to be cautious. The Vine Sovereign's gaze was calm and calm. Naturally, she could tell that the word cautious from Yen Zhaoge's words were completely different from the world beyond world's exalted earth luminary Jiang Shen's mature and prudent mindset. Jiang Shenxin thought about it. The situation was not unchanging. He had to endure it for the time being and wait for the opportunity. The main reason was actually the Grand Supreme Elder. This was the foundation and pillar of his gentle and forbearing attitude. Some people's attitudes were more proactive and radical. That was because the Grand Supreme Elder's attitude was difficult to fathom. During the Great Calamity, the Elder Lord didn't interfere. which made it hard for others to be confident. If the Elder Lord treated the three clear lineage, Buddhism, heretics, demon race, and even the 9 underworlds evil devils with a transcendent attitude, it would be a nightmare for the Orthodox Taoism successors to a certain extent, even if the Elder Lord's attitude might change at any moment. However, what was his current attitude? Under what circumstances would his attitude change? If his attitude changed, what would it become? All of these were unpredictable. Yen Zhaoga suspected that it wasn't just them. The immeasurable heavenly Lord, the future Buddha, and the others were also trying to fathom the Elder Lord's current strength and attitude. Under such circumstances, they had to be cautious. They firmly believed that the Elder Lord would make a move, which was why they had been enduring it. No matter if it was right or wrong, they had to think twice before acting. No one knows if the Elder Lord has a bottom line or where his bottom line is. Yen Zhaoga considered his words and slowly said, "However, from past experiences, the enemy wouldn't have any qualms if one or a few of us perished." The Vine Sovereign's gaze swept through everyone within the cave manor. Gao Qingxian, Long Xingchuan, Gao Shuebua, and Long Shueji all had a calm expression on their faces. The Cloud Conquest Emperor's expression was slightly serious. However, his gaze was still as calm as water as he welcomed the Vine Sovereign's gaze. He was good friends with the Hung Emperor Kong Qingxi, who perished under Yu Zhenbei's sword. As such, he had always been at odds with the Sword Sovereign Yu Zhenbei and had a tense relationship with the entire world beyond worlds. However, the Cloud Emperor also supported the roving Jade Heavens being transferred to the Pill Hall's cosmos. After all, it would reduce many hidden dangers for the roving Jade Heavens as a whole. To the Sword Sovereign, they would only return to their hostile state of being separated by 2 different worlds. There wouldn't be any changes. Just like in the past, when facing the heretics, the 3 clear lineage would temporarily let bygones be bygones. The Vine Sovereign looked around, and her expression didn't change. Her gaze returned to Yen Zhaoga. This is a good thing for the entire roving Jade Heavens. It's beneficial in the long run. I have no objections, said the Vine Sovereign slowly. When the prime clear experts heard it, they all let out a sigh of relief. However, the Vine Sovereign continued, "Qingxian, you don't have to worry about me. Just do whatever you want." When everyone heard this, they felt that something was amiss. They were all shocked. "Master, you—" Worry appeared in the profound sovereign's eyes, and she looked at her master. The Vine Sovereign nodded. "Just follow the fallen deity to the Pill Hall. I won't be going. You don't have to worry about me either. After the roving Jade Heavens left this Tao universe, I won't stay here. I'll head to the Void's outskirts by myself." The Cloud Conquest Emperor advised, "Vine Sovereign, to us, the heretics are evil. They will always be our common enemy." "You're right. Hence, I won't object to you going. In fact, I'll support you," the Vine Sovereign said calmly. "However, I won't accept any benefits from Yen Xintang's lineage." After saying that, she stood up. "Go and prepare yourselves. Don't worry about me." Looking at the Vine Sovereign's back as she walked towards the Cave Manor's back hall, the profound Sovereign, Cloud Emperor, and the other prime clear experts looked at each other. Helplessness appeared on their faces. Although the Vine Sovereign's tone was calm, it didn't allow for any doubts. It was evident that she had already made up her mind, and she wouldn't waver. Yen Zhaoga felt the same as well. As such, he didn't say anything else. In the past, the Vine Sovereign's closed-door disciple, Kong Qingxi, insulted the deceased Yen Xintang, which infuriated Yu Zhenbei. The 2 fought to the death, and in the end, Kong Qingxi perished under Yu Zhenbei's sword. This caused the Vine Sovereign and the Jade Capital Crag, who were already extremely upset over Di Qinglian's death, to have no room for reconciliation. However, Without a doubt, Yen Zhaoge would stand on his senior apprentice uncle's side. Although the Vine Sovereign still couldn't let go of her grievances, she relented on the roving jade heaven's migration. With that, Gao Qingxian and the others wouldn't be in a difficult situation. Yen Zhaoge could also do whatever he wanted. Chapter 1337. After the Vine Sovereign left, the profound sovereign remained silent. To the people of the world, the achievements of the Vine Sovereign's disciples were legendary, not to mention the fact that there were none after the Great Calamity. Even during the prosperous era of martial arts before the Great Calamity, they were extremely rare. It was just that this glory made people sigh when they thought about it. To the Vine Sovereign, out of the 6 disciples, only 2 were left. One of them had already left the roving jade heavens and went their separate ways. The only thing left was that he wasn't close to him when it came to their common enemy, the jade capital crag. Yen Zhaoge asked himself if he was in the Vine Sovereign's shoes. He wouldn't feel happy either. Other than that, the Vine Sovereign was born before the Great Calamity. She was from the same generation as the world beyond worlds exalted earth luminary, Jiangshen. Her age was similar as well. If she didn't pass the profound origin tribulation and achieve the virtual immortal realm through the 5 Qis unification, she would have entered her twilight years. Moreover, the Vine Sovereign's old injuries had damaged her foundation, which would affect her lifespan to a certain extent. Of course, a profound immortal with the 4 Qis fused aura would have a lifespan of more than 10,000 years. Even if the Vine Sovereign's lifespan was nearing its end, it wouldn't happen within the next 100 years. However, due to her injuries, the Vine Sovereign couldn't see any hope of safely passing through the profound origin tribulation. Yen Zhaoge looked towards the profound sovereign, Gao Qingxian, only to see her remaining silent. He sighed in his heart and didn't say anything else. The Vine Sovereign's situation was unique. Her injuries were hard to heal. However, his control over the pill hall was getting better and better, and his refinement was getting deeper and deeper. Some methods were worth trying. Only looking at the Vine Sovereign's expression, she wouldn't accept it. Later, I'll talk to my master. The profound sovereign wasn't an ordinary person. After a brief moment of silence, she retracted her emotions and focused on the migration of the roving jade heavens. Zhaoge, what do you plan to do? Even the Vine Sovereign had to admit that this was a huge matter that would decide the entire roving jade heavens' future. Like what we've discussed before, I'll make some preparations in the roving jade heavens. Yen Zhaoge said, while this is only a clone, the preparations I have made are sufficient to complete. It is just that I will still require the assistance of the profound sovereign and the various seniors of the prime clear lineage. Only then would it be completed within a relatively short period of time. When the roving jade heavens is ready, Astro Sovereign and the others will make some noise in other places to divert the enemy's attention. Hearing his words, the people of the prime clear lineage nodded in agreement. Those who couldn't locate the pill hall were currently staring at the world beyond worlds, the roving jade heavens, and the Tao universe, hoping to locate Yen Zhaoge and the others. Something like the relocation of the roving jade heavens was bound to cause a huge commotion. There was no need to hide it from others. Therefore, he had to first find a way to attract the attention of the people watching him, and then seize the short opportunity to strive for success. We don't need to lure everyone away. As long as we can lure some of them away, our chances of success will increase greatly, Yen Zhaoge explained. At that time, I'll control the pill hall to return to the Tao universe and coordinate with the roving jade heavens. After everything is done, I'll immediately leave and hide within the boundless void's outskirts. The profound sovereign said, "Go ahead and do it. I will order people to cooperate with you. Before the matter is completed, don't make it public lest the news leak out." Yen Zhaoga nodded. Of course. That's why I invited the Brocade Emperor over. The Brocade Emperor. Fu Yunqi's expression didn't change. Before coming here, he already had a plan. He came here to act as a cover for Yen Zhaoga. Xuebua, you and Little Yi will take turns to bring Zhaoga and the others around. The profound sovereign looked at her eldest son. Gao Xuebua nodded. Yes, Xuebua understands. The profound sovereign looked at Yen Zhaoga again. After discussing with my master, I'll have to enter seclusion again. If nothing goes wrong, just act according to the plan. You don't have to worry about me. Profound sovereign, are you trying to pass the profound origin tribulation? Yen Zhaoga's heart moved slightly. With the help of the Pill Hall's Pill Chi, the sword sovereign, Yu Jinbei had successfully refined the fourth type of aura into his immortal aura. With the four Qis fused aura, Yu Jinbei was already at the pinnacle of the profound immortal realm, just like the lofty sovereign, Zhang Buxu, the astro sovereign, Chun Xuanzong, and the concealed sovereign, Yang Su, the astro sovereign. Chun Xuanzong also received good news. As long as he planned properly and ensured that the water devil wouldn't mess things up during the tribulation, he was confident of passing through the profound origin tribulation within 100 years and officially stepping into the five Qis unification's domain. From the looks of it now, the profound sovereign, Gao Qingxian, also had the confidence of taking that step. She might even be faster than Chun Xuanzong. Yen Zhaoga recalled the battle 20 years ago. He had contacted the roving jade heavens. Unfortunately, the message he received was that Gao Qingxian had been in seclusion for many years and was still lacking the final bit of clarity. She wasn't confident of making a breakthrough and becoming a grand virtual immortal. Today, 20 years later, the time was finally ripe. Yen Zhaoga felt happy for her. Gao Han, Jiang Shen, and Ling Qing had all started cultivating before the Great Calamity. Among the three clear lineage of successors that appeared after the Great Calamity, Gao Qingxian might be the second person after Suo Mingzhang to achieve the five Qis unification and become a grand virtual immortal. Considering that sword cultivators had always had a harder time improving compared to other martial art practitioners, especially ascending to the immortal realm, it was truly worth celebrating that Gao Qingxian had the confidence to reach the next level. In the end, it's still a little too late. Gao Qingxian didn't deny it. However, she wasn't complacent either. She calmly nodded and confirmed Yen Zhaoga's guess. Other than the Dragon Spring Emperor, Long Xueji, the Gao brothers, the Cloud Conquest Emperor, and the Brocade Emperor were also a little surprised. Then, they congratulated Gao Qingxian. Then, Senior Apprentice Uncle Long, Yen Zhaoga looked towards the Dragon Spring Emperor, Long Xingchuan, and the Cloud Conquest Emperor. Long Xingchuan smiled and said, Taoist Cloud Conquest and I are nurturing our swords. You don't have to care about us. Just do whatever you want to do. The Cloud Conquest Emperor smiled as well. Yen Zhaoga nodded. The profound sovereign, Gao Qingxian, added, I'll suppress the green duckweed sword's sword mark. Just do what you need to do. There's no need to worry. That's for the best, said Yen Zhaoga. Now, he knew that the roving Jade 7 relied on the incongruence Divine Mother's support to establish the roving Jade Heavens in the past, just like how the world beyond worlds relied on the primordial Heavenly Lord's treasure, the Triratna Scepter. The roving Jade Heavens also relied on a treasure left behind by the Lord of Prime Clear Numinous Treasure. It was the Lord of Numinous Treasure's sword, the green duckweed sword. After the Lord of Numinous Treasure transcended, the incongruence Divine Mother wielded this sword until now. In the past, when Yen Zhaoga arrived at the roving Jade Heavens for the first time and felt the green duckweed mountain's spirit chi pulse's sharpness, he vaguely guessed something. Now, his guesses had been verified. Gao Qingxuan's gaze towards Yen Zhaoga turned gentler. Now that we're in a troubled state, I'll have a chat with you and your father after things have settled down. Not only Long Xingchuan, but she also wanted to meet her junior apprentice sister's descendant. Chapter 1338. After hearing the profound sovereign Gao Qingxuan's words, Yan Zhaoga's North Ocean clone bowed. Profound sovereign, you're being too polite. My father and I hope to meet you and senior apprentice Uncle Long, Gao Qingxian nodded, and Yan Zhaoga and the others bid farewell and left the cave manor. They knew that Gao Qingxian and the Vine Sovereign still had to talk. However, Yan Zhaoga didn't think that the profound sovereign could change the Vine Sovereign's mind. After exiting the cave manor, Yan Zhaoga didn't stay for long. He immediately bade farewell to Long Xingchuan, Long Xueji, and the Cloud Conquest Emperor. Then, he left together with Gao Xuebua. Since they had already made up their minds, they didn't delay any further and immediately took action. From the outside, Gao Xuebua was only bringing the brocade Emperor Fu Yunqi around the roving jade heavens, as if he was enjoying the scenery here. Although the brocade Emperor Fu Yunqi had left the world beyond worlds with Yan Zhaoga and the others, he was still of the grand clear lineage and was more independent. As such, traveling around the roving jade heavens under Gao Xuebua's lead wasn't that eye-catching. No one could tell if Fu Yunqi had the intention of joining the roving jade heavens. As for Yan Zhaoga, he remained hidden in the shadows. Just like how he did in the world beyond worlds, he methodically made his arrangements. His figure was hidden within Gao Xuebua's sleeves, and he was writing radiant talismans. Then, the talismans turned transparent and formless within the void. They floated out and landed on the roving jade heavens mountains and rivers, as well as the land spanning billions of miles. How intricate! As expected, it's extraordinary after witnessing it personally. While Gao Xuebua was conversing with Fu Yunqi as if nothing had happened, he was also observing Yan Zhaoga's actions. After seeing it, he was filled with admiration. He was also a sword cultivator. However, he wasn't as focused on cultivating the sword as his brother Long Xueji. Gao Xuebua had also dabbled in other martial arts, formations, pills, and other miscellaneous arts. Moreover, his attainments in these arts weren't shallow. However, as he observed Yan Zhaoga writing the various talismans, he felt overwhelmed. He could barely tell that Yan Zhaoga's talismans were rather profound, and he didn't fully understand them. Senior apprentice Uncle Gao, you flatter me. Yan Zhaoga laughed softly. Right, I haven't congratulated you for successfully pushing open the immortal door, passing the immortal mortal tribulation, and becoming a leakless true immortal. Gao Xuebua smiled, faintly. I'm getting old, so I have no choice but to do it. I'm not happy about it. It's more like I've made a fool out of myself. The brocade emperor, Fu Yunqi, could also hear the sound transmission between them. He immediately said, What are you talking about, Taoist Gao? You've successfully nurtured your sword. Shocking the world with a single brilliant feat, I'm afraid that you're even closer to the tranquil, profound, immortal realm than I am. Your words really make me feel ashamed. Several years ago, the roving jade heavens finally gained another true immortal emperor. He was the eldest son of the profound sovereign Gao Qingxian and the dragon spring emperor Long Xingchuan, Gao Xuebua. It had been more than 1,000 years since he became an utmost exalt. In terms of age, even if he wasn't as old as Wang Zhangcheng or Yu Zhenbei, he was still much older than Fu Yunqi. Compared to his younger brother, Long Xueji, he was much older. The reason why he had remained in the human exalt realm was because he had been cultivating in the prime clear lineages sheath edge and nurture sword art. 1,000 years was like a day. While this technique allowed the prime clear sword cultivators to remain in their current realm, it allowed them to continuously accumulate and polish their sharpness. When their divine swords were unsealed and revealed to the world Once more, they would have a greater chance of breaking through the bottleneck of their current realm. Moreover, such a positive effect could more or less be carried over to the next realm, allowing them to charge towards the next realm. Therefore, under the circumstances where conditions allowed, some prime clear experts would cultivate in this technique. Even the Dragon Spring Emperor of the Jade clear lineage was included. However, this technique was hard to cultivate. There were only a few who could cultivate it successfully. Most of them might even be harmed by it. Basically, it could be said that those who could safely cultivate in the sheath edge and nurture sword art had the potential and strength to push open the immortal door. One reason why they cultivated in the sheath edge and nurture sword art was because of the consideration of actual combat. When they unsealed their sword, the shocking sword would most likely exceed their enemy's expectations. It could become their trump card in a life and death battle. The other reason was so that they would have a greater advantage when they charged towards a higher realm. Since the conditions were so harsh, the number of people who cultivated in this technique was also extremely low. Gao Shuebo was one of the people who had succeeded in cultivating it. Theoretically, those who cultivated in the sheath edge and nurture sword art could continue cultivating it indefinitely. However, there was a very real problem that they had to consider: the length of their lifespan. The reason why Gao Shuebo finally unsealed his sword a few years ago and took that final step was because his natural lifespan had already reached its end. At the same time, the appearance of the Western Pure Lands and the demon race made the roving Jade Heavens and Gao Shuebo feel that the situation was becoming more and more unpredictable. After careful consideration, Gao Shuebo finally decided to stop nurturing his sword. Instead, he unsealed his sword and took the final step to push open the immortal door. Gao Shuebo ascended to the true immortal realm. On one hand, he would strengthen the roving Jade Heaven's strength. On the other hand, he would help his mother, the Vine Sovereign, his father, and the others share the burden. Compared to an exalt martial saint, it was naturally more convenient for a true immortal to handle matters. With that, the profound sovereign and the others could be more relaxed and spend more time on their own cultivation. Your too humble Taoist brother, Fu Yunqi, smiled. Due to the accumulation of the sheath edge and nurture sword art, Gao Shuebo was currently much closer to the profound immortal realm than the Brocade Emperor. The accumulated time wouldn't go to waste. However, Fu Yunqi didn't mind it. He was very confident of his current situation. For the past 20 years, he had been continuously researching the art of severing emotions and parasitizing after receiving Yan Zhaoga's reminder. Although he hadn't succeeded yet, he had already made some progress. Only when he was exchanging information with Yan Zhaoga, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This young man's understanding of the Grand Clear lineage's various secret arts seemed to be even more thorough than him, a Grand Clear lineage that had been cultivating for thousands of years. Even if the other party was cultivating the 3 clear lineages, he was still astonished. Although Yan Zhaoga was currently hidden within Gao Shuebo's sleeve, and Fu Yunqi couldn't see his figure, he was still immersed in his thoughts. The group walked and stopped, continuously leaving behind shapeless traces on the roving Jade Heaven's 9 regions. Within the Astro Mountain's starry sea, the stars in the skies were floating, and countless worlds were densely covered by the stars. Suddenly, a clump of yellow cloud flew out from one of the worlds. The yellow cloud was thin and long like a snake. It meandered through the vast Astro Mountain's starry sea. The yellow cloud flew through layers of space and finally arrived at the central core of the Astro Mountain's starry sea. There was a majestic world that was as beautiful as the immortal realm. When the yellow cloud landed in this world, the cloud chi dispersed, and a man dressed up as a Taoist was revealed. A group of disciples and children followed behind him. The Taoist brought his disciples to traverse through the immortal mountains and finally stopped at the entrance of a cave manor. As soon as he stood firmly, the voice of the cave manor's owner resounded, "Taoist Hundred Eyes, congratulations on successfully refining the divine pill." Well said, well said. After the Taoist entered the cave manor, a child led him to the owner. "May I know why you invited me here?" Chapter 1339. After the cave manor's owner welcomed the Taoist, he didn't bother with pleasantries and directly said, "I did invite Taoist Hundred Eyes here to discuss something." "What do you want to talk about, Taoist?" The middle-aged Taoist lifted the wine cup on the table and brought it to his mouth. The cave manor's owner wasn't in a hurry to speak. Instead, he asked, "Taoist Hundred Eyes, you've been busy refining pills. How much do you know about the changes in the world?" The Taoist said, "Frankly, I've met others after coming out of seclusion. I've also heard about some important matters. We can finally walk out of here. We don't have to hide in the Astro Mountains' starry seas anymore." This was naturally something worth paying attention to for the demon race living in the Astro Mountains' starry seas, especially the top-notch demon race bigwigs. "I heard that before the Great Calamity, the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace's Pill Hall had reappeared." As the Taoist spoke, his gaze was filled with greed. "Right, it seems like there's a new grand heavenly immortal in the three clear lineage." As the Taoist spoke, his gaze was filled with envy. The cave manor's owner nodded. "That's right, that's right." The Taoist returned to his senses and looked at the cave manor's owner. "Why did you invite me here, Taoist? Haven't you always wanted to cause trouble for the incongruous Divine Mother's disciples?" The cave manor's owner said, "Now, you have the chance." The Taoist showed a doubtful expression. "I didn't hear about the incongruous Divine Mother perishing." "The incongruous Divine Mother has indeed yet to perish. However, the chance has come." The cave manor's owner waved his hand. "The nine-headed great sage has just come out of seclusion." The nine-headed great sage has no conflict with the incongruous Divine Mother. The Taoist glanced at him, and his doubtful expression became even thicker. The cave manor's owner sneered. However, the nine-headed great sage had suffered a huge loss in the hands of the Jade clear lineage. As he said that, the Taoist's gaze moved. The doubtful expression on his face disappeared, and he gradually revealed a contemplative expression. "You're saying you might know that the person who caused the nine-headed great sage to suffer a loss was the personal disciple of the Jade Clear primordial heavenly lord, the Jade Cauldron cultivated deity's disciple." The cave manor's owner said, "What you don't know is that there's also a lineage of the Jade Cauldron amongst the Jade Clear successors." The Taoist priest's interest was piqued. He looked at the owner of the cave, waiting for him to continue. "After the Great Calamity, a very outstanding junior emerged from the Jade Clear lineage. His name was Yen Shintang, and he was a direct disciple of the Jade Cauldron lineage." The owner of the cave manor did not disappoint him, as he continued. "Still, while Yen Shintang himself has already perished, he left behind descendants. If the information I've received isn't wrong, the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace's Pill Hall that has reappeared is currently in the hands of Yen Shintang's descendant, Yen Zhaoga." As he said this, he looked at that Taoist. As for that Yen Shintang, he married a prime clear martial practitioner in the past. She was also an outstanding figure of the prime clear lineage after the Great Calamity. In other words, the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace's Pill Hall has fallen into the hands of the descendants of Reverend Yuding and the incongruous Divine Mother. The owner of the cave said with a smile, "How do you think the nine-headed great sage will react when he finds out? Currently, the Pill Hall is hidden and hard to locate. However, those prime clear descendants are still within the Tao universe. I've heard that their relationship isn't bad, and they seem to be in contact with each other for the past few years. Only they're being very careful and we wouldn't be able to catch them. That's great. The Taoist stroked his beard and smiled. We'll use those incongruous Divine Mother's descendants to locate the pill hall. However, he quickly retracted his smile. Wait, this Yin Xintang, Yin Zhaoga, and the others are only the Jade Cauldron lineage's lineage, like the one at the Guan River's entrance. They aren't that person's descendants. The nine-headed great sage wouldn't vent his anger on them, right? The owner of the cave manor smiled and said, let's not talk about whether they know where that person is. They have the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace's pill hall in their hands. Even the nine-headed great sage would be tempted. It's perfect. He glanced at the Taoist. Regarding the pill hall, we shouldn't be greedy. It'd be best if we could get some benefits from it. Even if there aren't any benefits, Taoist 100 Eyes, can't you take the chance to vent your anger on the incongruous Divine Mother's descendants? However, the one who killed your disciples seems to be no longer in this world. What's left are only her disciples and grand disciples. Taoist 100 Eyes, you don't have to stoop down to their level. The Taoist snorted, that bitch killed my disciple. Her death isn't worthy of pity. Now that her retribution is on her disciples and grand disciples, they deserve this fate. If someone could restrain the incongruous Divine Mother, he would have less to worry about. Wait, didn't the Jade Clear lineage have a new grand, heavenly immortal? Other than that, there's also the North Star Emperor and the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor. The Taoist suddenly recalled something. The cave manor's owner nodded. That's right. Although they might not have the chance to make a move like the incongruous Divine Mother, it's not impossible. However, don't worry. Although we're currently fighting against the Western Buddhist lands and the Immortal Court heretics, other than the nine-headed great sage, there are still other great sages who have yet to make a move. The Taoist nodded. If that's the case, let's go meet the nine-headed great sage now. Don't be impatient. There's no need to rush. The cave manor's owner stopped him. Other than the few heavenly lords, the strength of the other Taoism's 3 clear lineage shouldn't be underestimated. The roving Jade Heavens has been managed by the prime clear lineage for many years. Don't underestimate it. Let's look for some helpers. Only then will we have a higher chance of success. The cave manor's owner looked outside. They should be arriving soon. The Taoist's eyes flickered as he started calculating. As expected, not long later, a boy led another person in. The newcomer was enveloped by a layer of moonlight. As the moonlight dispersed, the figure of a woman was revealed. Greetings, Taoist brother. May I know why you've invited me here? After greeting the cave manor's owner, the woman looked at the Taoist with slight surprise. Isn't this Taoist 100 Eyes? The Taoist nodded. Greetings, fairy. You're even more elegant than before. The cave manor's owner said, I've invited you here because I have something to discuss with you. He explained the matter. The woman frowned. The awakened Sky Hall. This is the only way to find him. However, currently we're fighting against the Western Buddhist lands and the Immortal Court. Although we still have some strength left, it's still possible for the Taoism's heavenly lords to take action. Wouldn't it ruin His Majesty's plan if we cause trouble now? She asked hesitantly. Also, there's a problem. The woman glanced at the Taoist. After some hesitation, she said, Is it really a good idea to involve the prime clear lineage? We have a great sage who attended the prime clear lineage's teachings in the past. Although the nine-headed great sage might take action, we still have to consider this point, right? The Taoist's face sank. He seemed slightly displeased, but he didn't refute her. On the contrary, the cave manor's owner smiled. There's no need to worry. At the very least, it's not a big problem. Chapter 1340. Hearing what the master of the cave said, the expressions of the other two changed slightly. Oh, Have you forgotten? After the investiture of the gods era, many prime clear bigwig experts were actually quite dissatisfied with the incongruence Divine Mother, the owner of the cave manor, reminded. It's just that now that Taoism has withered, the incongruence Divine Mother's lineage became the prime clear orthodox lineage. However, those of us who are related to the prime clear lineage still dislike the incongruence Divine Mother. When the other two heard this, realization dawned on their faces. In addition, fellow Taoist White Deer has been keeping an eye on that place for the past few years. The owner of the cave manor continued, the great sage of the pacifying heavens won't stand up for him. However, if he managed to convince the great sage of the pacifying heavens to be interested in the heavenly quartz divine palaces, Pill Hall, wouldn't things be different? I heard that the earliest clue to the Pill Hall was found by that old White Deer. It's a pity that he wanted to keep it all to himself, but he wasn't capable enough. In the end, it ended up benefiting others. The Taoist priest nodded repeatedly. However, if he can convince the great sage of the heaven leveling this time, it would be for the best. To a Taoist, it would naturally be best if he could get a share of the Pill Hall's benefits. Even if he couldn't get a share of it, if he wanted to lure Yen Zhaoga and the Pill Hall out, he would have to make a move on the roving Jade Heavens first. After all, he would be able to vent his anger first, and wouldn't have made a wasted trip. The woman instantly thought of many things. More and more great sages of the demon race were eyeing the Pill Hall. Even if they managed to obtain the Pill Hall in the end, they would lose a lot of opportunities. The majority of the benefits might fall into the hands of those great sages. However, since the nine-headed great sage and the other great demons had to withstand the pressure from the incongruence Divine Mother and the other Taoism heavenly venerables, it was inevitable. Otherwise, they might not be able to succeed on their own. At the very least, there would be risks. The best example was the White Deer demon's attempt to monopolize everything, but he ended up kicking an iron plate. With the previous example, they naturally had to think about how to settle the matter before splitting the spoils with their own people. It was hard to say how much benefit she would get. However, she wasn't greedy. Her target was only the few spiritual medicines stored within the Pill Hall. If the Pill Hall were to fall into the hands of the demon clan, it wouldn't be difficult for them to obtain it. These few spiritual herbs were extremely important to her. They were hard to find elsewhere, so it was worth taking a gamble. In any case, even if the sky fell, the nine-headed great sage, and the others would be there to support it. What was a disaster to her was nothing to a great saint of the monster clan. Since that's the case, I have no more questions. The woman said, back then, I nagged about wanting a few spiritual herbs from the awakened sky hall. I didn't expect Tao brother to still remember it and take care of me this time. I am truly grateful. The owner of the cave abode smiled and said, Fairy, what are you talking about? We're just taking care of each other. He said emotionally, we've waited for so many years, and now that we've finally been reborn, we still need to be careful and careful. In the past, the heavenly quartz divine palaces, Pill Hall, was a huge fortune. Naturally, we have to scheme against it. Fellow Taoist White Deer was too greedy back then, which resulted in him failing on the verge of success. Of course, we have to learn from it. The owner of the cave abode stood up as he spoke. Let's not waste any more time. Let's go meet the nine-headed great sage now. The three of them left the cave together, picked up a few disciples who were waiting for their orders, and flew out of this world together. After flying in the Astro Mountains' starry sea for an unknown period of time, another world appeared in front of them. After passing through the dimensional barrier of time and space and entering that world, they were greeted by a vast and boundless blue sea. As the waves undulated, violent demonic chi permeated the surroundings. The three of them dived into the sea. After a while, they re-emerged from the sea and went far away. This journey was a long one. They left the Astro Mountains' starry sea and entered the void's boundless outskirts. They traveled through the void's boundless outskirts, passing through the cracks caused by the folding of time and space. After traveling for an unknown period of time, the three of them finally stopped. The owner of the cave abode took out a talisman and lit it up. The green smoke formed from the talisman didn't dissipate for a long time in the void. Instead, it formed a circle. After a while, brilliance appeared in the circle and flickered a few times. Seeing this, the three great demons instantly knew what was going on. They immediately changed their path and flew towards another direction. After a long time, they saw a flash of light from afar. An old man came towards them. He was the heavenly court's divine palace's Lord Longevity God's Mount. After the great calamity, he escaped and joined the Astro Mountains' starry sea, the white deer demon. Taoist Fuluo, you're here. Forgive me for not welcoming you. The white deer demon cupped his hands. Taoist 100 Eyes, profound frost fairy, you're here too. Greetings. Fuluozi and profound frost fairy said, Taoist white deer, you're too polite. The 100 Eyes Taoist seemed a little perfunctory. When the white deer demon saw this, he felt a little angry. After the heavenly court's divine palace's Pill Hall's incident spread, he became the demon race's laughing stock. At the same time, many great demons were dissatisfied. The white deer demon could only try his best to salvage the situation. Previously, he was injured by Suo Mingzhang. Before his injuries had recovered, and he could barely move, he immediately rushed over to the Tao universe. Not only was he searching for them, but he was also waiting for them. He hoped to find the whereabouts of Yen Zhaoga and the Pill Hall. There were a few times when he almost intersected the Pill Hall's connection with the roving Jade Heavens. Unfortunately, he still failed. Now that he saw Fuluozi and the others, and was even treated coldly by the 100 Eyes Taoist, the white deer demon's mood wouldn't be good. He's just a wild man. The old white deer was furious, but he didn't show it. He only said, Taoist Ru Yi and Taoist Huanshan aren't far away. Please follow me. After we meet up, we'll discuss our plans. Taoist Ru Yi? The gazes of Fuluozi and the others flickered. The great sage who pacifies heaven's younger brother. The three demons looked at each other and nodded secretly. At the same time, they became even more cautious. The great sage who pacifies heavens, the Bull Demon King, was undoubtedly one of the most important bigwigs in the Astro Mountains Starry Seas demon race universe. From the looks of it, even if the old white deer didn't persuade the great sage who pacifies heavens to take action, the great sage who pacifies heavens was already involved in this matter. It wasn't impossible for him to take action personally. The more important figures there were, the higher the chances of success. However, correspondingly, if they succeeded, the benefits they would get would be lesser. There were many variables involved. Who would get more benefits would depend on the development of the situation. The three of them followed the white deer demon and walked towards the distance. After a while, they saw a bundle of auspicious clouds floating in the void. Within the auspicious clouds, the will of prestige was surging, causing one's heart to palpitate. One couldn't help but want to worship it as if it was a king. That was the dragon's might. A middle-aged man was sitting within the auspicious clouds. Although he was in human form, one could still recognize that he was a true dragon. Beside the middle-aged man, there was a person who was also dressed like a Taoist. This person had a pair of phoenix eyes and vertical eyebrows. He had a ferocious appearance and wore a crown of stars on his head. He wore a golden robe, and his beard was fluttering like fire. Around the auspicious clouds, a few demons were gathered. They were also waiting for orders. Chapter 1341. The strongest senior brother in history 1341. The curtains were pulled open, and the drums sounded. Fuluozi and the others approached together with the white deer demon. You're updating so fast. The two people on the auspicious cloud stood up and cupped their hands. You're here. Taoist, Rui, Taoist Huanshan. Sorry to keep you waiting. Fuluozi, and the others greeted them as well. The middle-aged man who ruled over the auspicious cloud was a true dragon. His name was Ao Huanshan, also known as Dragon King Huanshan. The dragon race was once at its peak during the ancient era. It was one of the strongest races among the 10,000 ancient races. However, after entering the ancient investiture of the gods era, the dragon race gradually declined. Although there were many demon immortal experts, they lacked top-notch bigwigs. During the middle journey to the West era, the dragon race's rise was relatively limited. However, after entering the new era, the dragon race went into hiding and recuperated. Now, it was showing signs of revival. It was naturally incomparable to the ancient era's peak. However, in the current Astro Mountains starry sea, it was considered to have a place. Ao Huanshan's age was younger than the great demons present. Hence, he was rather low-key and didn't speak much. He quietly listened to the conversation between the white deer demon, Fuluozi, and the others. However, the other golden-robed Taoist was different. He was the younger brother of the great sage who pacifies heavens, the bull demon king. He was also a great demon that ruled over a region during the journey to the West era. In some historical legends, his name was written as True Immortal Rui. In this world's history, he had changed his title to Great Immortal Rui when he had just pushed open the immortal door and became a demon immortal. Sometimes, he was also known as Taoist Rui. He looked at Fuluozi and the others and said expressionlessly, "Fellow Taoists, are you here to have a share? I wonder if the great sage who pacifies heavens will make a move." Taoist 100 Eyes stared back at him and asked. Taoist Rui snorted, "My elder brother has his own plans." Then he pondered, "I wonder which great sage ordered the three of you to come here?" Taoist Brother Fulua, "I remember that your father was the leader of the battle against the Western Buddhist lands this time, so he shouldn't have the time to take care of things here. Could it be that he has already returned? The war has yet to end, so it's only natural that my father hasn't returned." Fuluozi smiled. "However, the nine-headed great sage will take action this time." Taoist Rui frowned slightly. "The nine-headed great sage has come out of seclusion?" Fuluozi nodded. "Yes." The white deer demon and dragon king Huanshan looked at each other. Their gazes were a little complicated. There was joy and worry. Now that the nine-headed great sage has come out of seclusion, our chances of success have increased by a lot. Taoist Rui's furrowed brows quickly relaxed as he calmly said. Fuluozi said, "Of course, with the current situation, the few Taoist heavenly venerables are more relaxed. Who knows, one of them might make a move. With more great sages on our side, our chances of success will naturally be higher. Although we don't want to act recklessly, the longer the pill haul ends up in someone else's hands, the worse it will be for us. Not to mention the fact that the other party's control over the pill haul is getting deeper and deeper. Even the treasured spiritual medicines and spiritual pills stored within the pill haul are about to be consumed. We have no choice but to be anxious." Fuluozi sighed. "According to the time in the Taoist cosmos, about 20 years have passed, right? It's been a long time. The longer we drag this out, the lower our rewards will be." The profound Frost Fairy said, "Indeed, a long night is fraught with dreams. It's better to act sooner rather than later. Although the heretics are currently fighting against each other and have dragged us and the Western Pure Lands into it, The two heretics will definitely not be able to take care of this side. Our competitors will also be reduced by 2, and the situation won't be as chaotic. She solemnly said, in comparison, don't forget about the Western Buddhist lands. They are the same as us, and still have some strength to spare. Fairy is right. We don't intend to start another war against the Western Buddhist lands here. Fuluazi said, this is the reason why we are here. Taoist Ru Yi asked, what do you plan to do, Taoist Fulua? The white deer demon said, previously, Taoist Fulua mentioned to me that within the Taoist cosmos roving jade heavens, one of the prime clear lineages is related to the jade clear lineages Yen Zhaoga, who controls the pill hall. Taoist Ru Yi and Dragon King. Huanshan instantly understood. They want to attack the roving jade heavens and lure Yen Zhaoga and the pill hall out. That's right, Fuluazi explained. Don't target the entire roving jade heavens. Just target a few people who are related to the jade clear lineage's descendants. If the incongruence Divine Mother is alerted because of this, the 9-headed great sage and the great sage who pacifies heavens will deal with it. Taoist Ru Yi quickly started calculating in his heart. At this moment, Dragon King Huanshan said slowly, if we want to use this chance to lure the pill hall out from the void's outskirts, we'll have to give them some time to travel. If we drag this out for too long, the Western Buddhist lands will react to it and send more manpower over. Fulua Zi chuckled and turned to look at Taoist 100 Eyes. As such, we shouldn't show our faces for now, especially Taoist White Deer and Taoist Ru Yi. Taoist White Eyes will be the vanguard. Taoist Huanshan, you'll hold the fort in the name of helping your friend. Dragon King Huanshan looked at Taoist 100 Eyes with a surprised expression. Although his strength was outstanding, he was a wild demon in the past. Later on, he was subdued by someone and became a guard. After he escaped, he occupied the mountain and became a king. He rarely interacted with the dragon race like this. Dragon King Huanshan was more familiar with Fulua Zi, the white deer demon, and the profound frost fairy. He wasn't even familiar with Taoist Ru Yi, let alone Taoist 100 Eyes. Taoist 100 Eyes also turned a blind eye to his gaze. Before the great calamity, before Taoist 100 Eyes entered the Astro Mountains starry sea, a disciple that you liked died in the hands of a prime clear successor. Fulua Zi smiled and said, that person was a direct disciple of the incongruence Divine Mother's lineage. Yes, within the Tao universe, the person with the highest seniority in the roving jade heavens seems to be called Practitioner Zedong. He seems to be the grand disciple of Taoist 100 Eyes' enemy. Fulua Zi said, Taoist 100 Eyes is here to seek justice for his disciple. The Western Buddhist lands might think that the pill hall might be lured here. By then, they would send reinforcements over. We'll just have to think of a way to slow them down. After pausing for a moment, he added, I have some ideas. We might be able to give it a try when the time comes. The demons looked at each other and nodded. If that's the case, let's take action now. As they were speaking, a few rays of brilliance flashed past from afar. When they arrived in front of everyone, a few mighty and majestic armored men appeared. The one in the lead was the same as Dragon King Huanshan. His entire body was overflowing with dragon might. He was a true dragon. After he arrived, he didn't greet the white deer demon and the others. Instead, he reported to Dragon King Huanshan, Father, there's a commotion. We've discovered the whereabouts of the jade clear successor, Chun Xuanzong. Chapter 1342. Stand up and reply, said Dragon King Huanshan. Chun Xuanzong. Fulua Zi said, Jade Clear's Chun Xuanzong is indeed of the Jade Clear lineage. Although he's inferior to Suo Mingzhong, who ascended to the grand heavenly immortal realm, He's still one of the top figures amongst the 3 clear lineages after the Great Calamity. Previously, when Yen Zhaoge and the others entered the Void's outskirts, I heard that this person left the Tao universe together with them. After thinking for a while, he continued, tracing back to his lineage. He should be from amidst Cloud's lineage. The white deer demon said, "It can't be wrong. This person must be related to the Pill Hall." Traces of him had appeared before, and he contacted the prime clear lineage. Unfortunately, we couldn't stop him. Dragon King Huanshan looked at his son and asked, "Where's this person now?" The man in armor bowed and answered, "Father, he's currently in the universe where the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace's Pill Hall first appeared." Oh, the group of great demons looked at each other and muttered in their hearts, "This is interesting." The Pill Hall was already in their hands. Why would they return? Could it be that the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace's Pill Hall still has something special about it? In order to completely refine and control it, those Taoists encountered some obstacles. That's why they returned to the old place to search for clues and methods, said Dragon King Huanshan hesitantly. Great Immortal Ru Yi looked at the white deer demon. This is possible, right? After all, the Pill Hall's original hall spirit actually developed its own intelligence. This is unprecedented. After the hall's spirit perished, it fell into the hands of the 3 clear lineages. Something might have happened during that time. The white deer demon pondered for a while and said, "I'm not sure." However, Taoist Ru Yi's words aren't unreasonable. Great Immortal Ru Yi said, "If that's the case, you're saying that the entire Pill Hall might have moved to that universe to hide and sent people out to search for clues?" The group of demons said in unison, "It's possible, but we can't be sure either." How about this? Let's send one Taoist to take a look. As for the others, let's proceed according to our original plan. Fuluazi said, "Of course, we have to inform the 9-headed great sage and the others. This idea isn't bad. If we really discover traces of the Pill Hall, we'll quickly contact them. We'll abandon this place and rush over together." The demons looked at each other. However, who's going? Fuluazi was the first to speak. "I won't be going there or over there. I'll be waiting for the monks from the Western Pure Lands. If they send reinforcements from afar, I might be able to obstruct them with my little tricks. This way, it'll be more convenient for you. Taoist brother Fulua is of noble character and unquestionable integrity. We admire you." The demons nodded in unison. Taoist 100 Eyes and Taoist Huanshan will definitely stay here and attack the roving Jade Heavens. Fuluazi explained, "As long as the 2 of you make a move, the other party will only think of it as a personal grudge and not the Pill Hall." The white deer demon had participated in the fight for the Pill Hall back then. Since the bull spirit had entered the Pill Hall with him back then, Great Immortal Ru Yi couldn't reveal himself for the time being. Otherwise, others would immediately think of him, especially when Great Immortal Ru Yi revealed himself so early. It would be easy for others to think of the great sage who pacifies heavens behind him. They would subconsciously be on guard and alert. The profound Frost Fairy was also from the Heavenly Court's Divine Palace before the Great Calamity. Once she revealed her background, others would also easily think of the Pill Hall. Excluding Fuluazi, only the 100-eyed Demon Lord and Dragon King Huanshan were suitable to reveal themselves and seek trouble with the roving Jade Heavens. "It's better for Taoist Ru Yi to stay behind as well," said Fuluazi. He looked towards the white deer Demon Lord and the profound Frost Fairy. "Fellow Taoists, who will have to make a trip." The white deer demon and the profound Frost Fairy knew that Great Immortal Ru Yi had to stay behind in the Tao universe. Otherwise, if the conflict between the Taoism escalated and caused the incongruence Divine Mother or even more Taoism heavenly lords to appear, other than the nine-headed Great Sage, the Great Sage who pacifies heavens would have to make a move. Although they weren't sure if the Great Sage who pacifies heavens would come. This old man has been roaming around that area for a long time. Let this old man make this trip. The white deer demon took the initiative and said, I'll have to trouble the Taoists here. If they discovered anything, they would inform everyone to come over. If they didn't discover anything, they would just return home. On the other hand, a real battle was about to break out. If the incongruence Divine Mother and Suo Mingzhong, that killing god, were to appear, it would be hard to predict the outcome of the battle. Among all the demon race experts, it was hard to say who had the deepest understanding of the incongruence Divine Mother's strength. However, if one were to ask who understood Suo Mingzhong's strength the most, the old white deer would definitely do it. Hence, even though he was unwilling to leave after guarding this place for so many years, the old white deer still took up another task and temporarily left this place. It wasn't that he wanted to avoid the battle, but he wanted to split up. If there were any benefits after the battle, he wouldn't be lacking much. Then I'll have to trouble you, said the profound frost fairy with a smile. The others also said, Thank you, Taoist white deer. The white deer demon immediately turned around and left, disappearing into the endless void. Let's do it too, said Fuluwazi. Even if Taoist white deer sends back news that there's a problem, many of us are here to hold the line. It won't be hard for us to leave quickly. The hundred-eyed demon lord immediately said, Taoist Fulua, you're right. I'll go now. He turned around and looked at Dragon King Huanshan. Although both of them were slightly incompatible, he still said, I'll have to trouble you to hold the line. You're too polite. Please, said Dragon King Huanshan, simply as he nodded. The hundred-eyed demon lord immediately took the lead and entered the Tao universe. Dragon King Huanshan swept the auspicious cloud beside him, and the dragon son and the soldiers followed closely behind. They hid in the cloud and entered the Tao universe. The group of great demons traversed the universe, and their demonic aura soared into the sky. They passed through layers of space and arrived near the roving jade heavens. Under the invasion of the powerful aura, the roving jade heavens instantly showed signs of unrest. The sharp aura that leaked out from the green duckweed mountain became sharper and sharper. The entire roving jade heaven's spatial boundaries seemed to have turned into the edge of a sword, and it continuously shot towards the universe outside. Taoist Chuanhe's disciples and grand disciples, come out! The hundred-eyed demon lord ignored them, and his gaze was filled with disdain. Taoist Chuanhe, you killed my disciple in the past. Today, your retribution shall be on your disciples and grand disciples. His voice directly transformed into a yellow-colored visible halo, which pressed towards the roving jade heavens, suppressing the dense sword chi that was produced by the roving jade heavens boundary. Within the roving jade heavens green duckweed mountain, the vine sovereign had already exited her cave manor. Under her feet, the grand formation expanded, with the green duckweed mountain's radius of billions of miles as the center. It spread outwards, covering the entire roving jade heaven's 9 regions. A pillar of chi rose from the green duckweed mountain's main peak. As if it was a heavenly pillar and a sharp sword, it pierced through the clouds. The sword chi produced by the roving jade heaven's spatial boundaries instantly became stronger, and it defended against the external enemies. The vine sovereign's expression was solemn. Her opponent was merely speaking the truth and activating the sonorous voice of the great Tao. He hadn't even made a move yet. Yen Zhaoga's North Ocean clone had already returned to the green duckweed mountain. He frowned and looked towards the sky. The demon race? Remember the mobile website. Chapter 1343. although they were isolated from the roving jade heavens. Those whose cultivation reached a certain level could roughly feel the rumbling demonic chi. The vine sovereign formed a sword seal with one hand and swiped the void with her other hand, causing a projection to appear. Only those on the green Duckweed Mountain's main peak, Mount Yuyu, could see the projection. The sound was also limited to the mountain peak. Taoist Chuanhe's disciples, come out. Looking over, Yen Zhaoga saw that the old man was dressed up as he wore a bright red crown, a black robe, a pair of green cloud shoes, and a yellow ribbon tied around his waist. His face was like a melon, and his eyes were like bright stars. He looked like someone who had attained enlightenment. However, his demonic aura made one's heart palpitate. This outfit, Yen Zhaoga, felt that he looked familiar. However, he couldn't recall who he was just by looking at his appearance. He turned around and looked at Gao Shuebwa and the others beside him. What he said, Gao Shuebwa's expression turned solemn as he looked towards the sky, feeling Yen Zhaoga's gaze. He didn't turn his head around. Instead, he explained, Grandmaster Chuan, he was one of our sect's grandmasters before the Great Calamity. He had already passed away a long time ago. From the looks of it, an old enemy has come knocking on our door. The Vine Sovereign, Li Ying, pondered for a moment, and her expression turned even more solemn. She looked at the Taoist in the projection and asked, Could you be the 100-eyed demon lord of the past? Yen Zhaoga instantly came to a realization. However, after coming to a realization, his brows furrowed even more. So it's this old demon. Yen Zhaoga had naturally heard of the 100-eyed demon lord before, only it had been too long, and he had never interacted with him, which was why he couldn't recall it. This demon had already attained enlightenment during the middle journey to the West era. He was one of the top experts among the rogue great demons of the same cultivation realm, and he was extremely strong. Later on, he was subdued and became someone's guard. However, he managed to escape by accident and became a king once again. Compared to the old white deer, the 100-eyed demon lord was an even more terrifying and powerful demonic immortal. He had cultivated a special demonic technique. Even those with higher cultivation than him might not be able to do anything to him. Taoist Chuan, he was the Grand Master of the Vine Sovereign, Li Ying. In the past, he had killed the 100-eyed demon lord's disciple. Due to the incongruence Divine Mother, the 100-eyed demon lord couldn't take revenge and could only suppress his anger. After that, the 100-eyed demon lord entered the Astro Mountain's starry seas and disappeared from the great thousand worlds. Later on, Taoist Chuanhe himself passed away, but his disciples still knew about this grudge. Back then, no one had paid much attention to it, but after the Great Calamity, everything had changed. The Tao sect had suffered a calamity, and everything had to be rebuilt. The enemies that seemed to be insignificant in the past now had to be careful. When the Vine Sovereign saw the other party's appearance, she could roughly guess the 100-eyed demon lord's origin. Demon King Thousand, with Sect King Saint. The 100-eyed demon lord said unhurriedly, Taoist Chuan, he owes my disciple a life. Now that he is dead, you will pay for his life. As the yellow light, the Emperor Tian, dragon demon of sea, the dragon, and demon, the god, became Yen, sovereign of Yen Zhaoga, and the others looked behind him and saw a boundless golden sea of clouds that spanned across the cosmos void. Dragon roars resounded from within the sea of clouds. Dragon silhouettes rose and fell within the sea of clouds, faintly discernible. The dragon's might was so strong that one could even feel it through the roving jade heaven's spatial boundaries. Within the clouds, other than the silhouettes of true dragons, one could also see majestic banners that fluttered without wind. They were filled with majesty. Drum beats resounded from within the clouds. The drum beats were dense, causing one's blood vessels to expand. However, it didn't suppress the hundred-eyed demon lord's voice. Instead, it served as a contrast, making the hundred-eyed demon lord's words even more oppressive. Yen Zhaoga and the others felt their hearts sinking. The world of chaos and troubled times had truly arrived. The situation in this world had truly begun to undergo earth-shattering changes. In the past, there were heretics who threatened them. However, with the immortal court and the blessed lands of the White Lotus restraining each other, the Tao universe was still able to deal with them. However, from 20 years ago, the peaceful Tao universe was no longer as peaceful as before. More and more calamities came knocking on their doors. They wouldn't perish, but the environment would undoubtedly become much worse. If they couldn't adapt to this and deal with it appropriately, they would inevitably be impacted by the changing world's situation. Is that the dragon race? The Brocade Emperor, Fu Yunqi, raised his brows slightly. Although his tone was filled with doubt, his gaze was filled with certainty. Yen Zhaoga looked at the hundred-eyed demon lord, and then looked at the dragon's might. Are they here to assist the hundred-eyed demon lord? Are they here purely for revenge? Or are they here for the pill hall? Are they planning to attack the roving jade heavens to lure me and the pill hall out? Yen Zhaoga's thoughts instantly flashed across his mind. The hundred-eyed demon lord was extremely strong. However, if the incongruous Divine Mother were to descend, he would most likely be in trouble. Since he dared to appear today, it meant that he had something to rely on. At least, he didn't have to worry about the incongruous Divine Mother taking action. However, if he wasn't here purely for revenge, but for the pill hall, there might be more than one great sage expert behind this demon race small saint. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so confident. The latter meant that the enemy had already arrived at the border with a huge army. They had already set up a trap and were waiting for Yen Zhaoga and the pill hall to enter. Yen Zhaoga didn't say anything else. He silently observed the situation. The hundred-eyed demon lord didn't seem to be in a hurry. He kept increasing his strength, pressuring the roving jade heavens and the vine sovereign. It seemed like a cat toying with a mouse. However, it seemed like he was waiting for something. Behind the hundred-eyed demon lord, as the golden sea of clouds unfolded, numerous silhouettes appeared. The one leading the group had a human form. He looked like a dignified middle-aged man. He was Dragon King Huanshan. Dragon King Huanshan didn't make any moves. He only sat quietly on the auspicious cloud. However, even so, no one dared to underestimate this dragon race small saint who wanted to compete against the Taoism's grand virtual immortal heavenly monarch. He was more than happy to sit by the side and watch the hundred-eyed demon lord make his move. However, as he revealed his figure, the pressure and danger he brought to the roving jade heavens became more and more intense. Indeed, they seem like they're waiting for the pill hall and me to appear. Yen Zhaoga's eyes flickered. They're leaving enough time for the roving jade heavens to contact me, and for me to return from the void's outskirts. It seemed like they were only targeting the Vine Sovereign, and they didn't surround the roving jade heavens. Actually, they were also leaving an opening for the prime clear martial art practitioners who wanted to contact Yen Zhaoga to leave safely. Arriving at the right time is better than arriving early, Yen Zhaoga muttered to himself. Fortunately, the roving jade heaven's basic preparations are more or less done. It wasn't that he didn't expect the enemy to come to the roving jade heavens and surround them. However, it was still out of Yen Zhaoga's expectations for them to suddenly make their move. Yen Zhaoga also had some surprises for the uninvited guests today. The pill hall that they were longing for wasn't within the void's outskirts. Instead, it was within the Tao universe. Chapter 1344. 20 years had passed, while Yen Zhaoge had yet to completely refine and control the pill hall. Yen Zhaoge was currently very clear about many of the changes that had occurred within the pill hall. Previously, the boundary of the pill hall was blurry. It kept expanding outwards, gradually forming a universe. Not long ago, the pill hall converged inwards once again, and revealed its outer appearance once again. As for the worlds within the pill hall's internal cosmos, it was much more crowded between the overlapping space-time boundaries. However, it was still stable. The pill hall no longer had the scenery of the outerverse. The original appearance of the Divine Palace's main hall had been restored. Its whereabouts had become even more secretive. It was also convenient for him to enter the Tao universe. The wall between the two universes wouldn't be squeezing against each other, and it wouldn't alarm the white deer demon and the others who were monitoring this place. Currently, the pill hall had concealed its tracks and was floating within the Tao universe. It wasn't far away from the roving jade heavens. Yen Zhaoge had already made most of the preparations in the roving jade heavens. He had originally intended to make his move in the near future. Now that the enemy had unexpectedly sent a large number of troops to the border, the plan had more twists and turns, and the chances of success were undoubtedly much smaller. However, the hundred-eyed demon lord and the other great demons also didn't know much about Yen Zhaoge's situation. This was the chance for Yen Zhaoge and the others. Senior Uncle Gao, Senior Uncle Long, notify Her Majesty, Senior Uncle Long, and the others. We'll make a move right away. Yen Zhaoge's Northern Ocean clone swiveled his head to look at Gao Shuebo, Long Xueji, and the others. The other party is likely not just seeking revenge. If it's not just a simple revenge, then it means that they must have other experts waiting in ambush. Gao Shuebo's expression was solemn. Apart from the hundred-eyed demon lord and the dragon king Huanshan, if there were other great demons of such a level waiting for them, the roving jade heavens might not be able to repel their enemies even if they persisted in their defense. Yen Zhaoge said, "That's right. Let's just make a move now, catching the other party off guard. Go inform your grandparents, as well as the Cloud Emperor and the others." Gao Shuebo nodded and said to Yu Yi, "Yes, uncle." Yu Yi, who was watching the Vine Sovereign's attack, regained her senses. After answering, she transformed into a swordlight and flew away. Yen Zhaoge's Northern Ocean clone roared, "Rise!" He stomped on the ground, and with the mountain under his feet as the center, lines of runes appeared and began to spread in all directions. In the roving jade heavens, the mountains and rivers of the 9 prefectures, and the billions of miles of the world all lit up at the same time. One after another, great arrays rose from the ground and floated above the roving jade heavens. Then they resonated with each other and gradually formed a great array that seemed to envelop the entire roving jade heavens. Just like the migration of the world beyond worlds in the past, streams of light soared into the sky and exited the roving jade heavens. They intertwined with each other and traversed through the Tao universe. Under the Vine Sovereign's control, the roving jade heavens' dense sword chi wasn't affected at all. Both sides seemed to be unaffected and went their own ways. In the void of the universe beyond the roving jade heavens, a brilliance lit up. Endless purple mist suddenly appeared and filled the universe. At the center of the purple cloud sea, a white jade palace that was flickering with thousands of golden lights appeared beside the roving jade heavens of the Tao universe. When the hundred-eyed demon lord, who was slowly suppressing the roving jade heavens, and dragon king Huanshan, who was helping to hold the line, saw this, they were instantly shocked. The hundred-eyed demon lord subconsciously turned to look at dragon king Huanshan. Could this be the heavenly quartz divine palace's pill hall? Dragon king Huanshan stared at the white jade palace and murmured, "It should be right. It was inevitable for a veteran to think too much." After the two great demons recovered from their initial shock, their first thought was to suspect if there was a trap laid here, waiting for them to jump into it. Were the few Taoism's grand, heavenly immortals already waiting here? However, after thinking for a while, they didn't think so. The orthodox Taoism was currently recuperating. If it wasn't necessary, they wouldn't take the initiative to set up a trap. However, the pill hall that they had been searching for was actually hidden right under their noses. When they saw it, the 100-eyed demon lord and the other great demons couldn't help but feel that it was unimaginable and filled with doubts. However, when they saw the light pillars connecting the roving jade heavens and the pill hall, they were shocked. Is this world being taken away as well? Immediately informed Fuluozi and the others. On the golden, auspicious cloud, Dragon King Huanshan, who had been sitting on it, suddenly stood up and ordered a scarlet flood dragon to inform the others. The scarlet flood dragon quickly rushed out of the Tao universe. Fuluozi, great immortal Rui, profound frost fairy, and the other demon race bigwigs were also shocked by the connection between the pill hall and the roving jade heavens. However, they didn't know what was going on. They sent someone to investigate, and coincidentally met the Scarlet Flood dragon along the way. They quickly brought it back. After hearing the Scarlet Flood dragon's report, the three demons were shocked. That was close. They almost escaped. "Great immortal Ru," he said furiously, "let's quickly go and help Taoist 100-eyed and Taoist Huanshan. Be careful of the others who are monitoring this place," said Fuluozi, a group of great demons outside of the Tao universe, who were located in the boundless void, rushed towards the Tao universe. On the other side, the other forces that were monitoring the Tao universe also gradually noticed the commotion. They were bewildered and rushed towards the Tao universe to investigate. For a moment, a storm was brewing here again. It was just like the gathering of heroes 20 years ago. The entire Tao universe's space-time started trembling. At this moment, near the roving jade heavens, the flames of war immediately escalated. Trying to escape? It won't be that easy. The 100-eyed demon lord's expression was as cold as steel. He suddenly increased his strength and attacked towards the roving jade heavens. Dragon King Huanshan ordered someone to report to the pill hall. Then, he immediately jumped off the auspicious cloud and walked towards the pill hall. Above the pill hall, layers of golden light flew out. Dragon King Huanshan snorted. His fingers formed into a claw and grabbed onto the golden light. At the same time, he said, "Xian Song, cut off the connection between the pill hall and the other world." Next to him, his first son answered, "We obey father's orders." Prince Xian-song, who was wearing heavy armor, led a group of demons out from the golden auspicious cloud. They executed various techniques and slashed towards the streams of light connecting the roving jade heavens and the pill hall. At this moment, within the roving jade heavens, countless sword lights shone at the same time. The sword chi that was added onto the roving jade heavens space-time barrier suddenly became extremely vigorous. The 100-eyed demon lord raised his eyebrows. He immediately noticed that the opponent in front of him was no longer the Vine Sovereign. At this moment, within the roving jade heavens green duckweed mountain, a green-clothed woman took over the Vine Sovereign's position on the roving jade heavens main peak. Sword chi surged around her. Other than the Vine Sovereign, Long Xingqiuan, and Taoist Cloud Conquest were standing beside the green-clothed woman. Long Xingqiuan's expression was still as carefree as usual. He didn't seem to care about anything. However, a sheathed long sword appeared in his hand. While the roving jade heaven's sword chi was temporarily obstructing the 100-eyed demon lord, his figure flashed and arrived outside of the roving jade heavens. P.S. My eyes are blurry, so I can't see the computer screen clearly. I'll make up for the second update tomorrow. There won't be any less updates. Don't worry, everyone. Chapter 1345. Long Xingchuan transformed into a sword light and flashed out of the roving jade heavens, arriving within the Tao universe's void. In front of him was Prince Xianzong, leading a group of demons. They were attacking the streams of light connecting the roving jade heavens and the pill hall. Long Xingchuan held onto the sword sheath with one hand and the sword hilt with the other. He slowly unsheathed the sword. As he unsheathed the sword, his entire aura changed. His expression was still lazy and unchanging, but a terrifying aura that caused people's hearts to palpitate was suddenly released. Prince Xianzong, who was slashing at the streams of light, was startled. His gaze turned cold as he turned around to look at Long Xingchuan. Long Xingchuan slowly unsheathed the sword. Although his movements seemed slow, the demons were terrified. Tranquil, profound, immortal. A tranquil, level immortal sword. Prince Xianzong pondered. The sword's name was Rushing Abyss. It wasn't Long Xingchuan's personal sword. His young dragon spring was a leakless level immortal artifact. Due to the limited time, he didn't have enough time to gather the materials to forge a tranquil, level immortal sword. The Rushing Abyss sword in his hand was the sword of his wife, profound sovereign Gao Qingxian, after she ascended to the profound immortal realm. Long Xingchuan and his wife had interacted a lot with sword arts and martial arts. Now that the sword was in his hands, it was as if it had entered a second owner's hands. He didn't even need to nourish it. As Long Xingchuan unsheathed the sword, brilliant sword lights erupted from the sword sheath. The sword chi that seemed even sharper and stronger than the roving jade heavens sword world filled the entire Tao universe. When Long Xingchuan unsheathed the sword, everyone felt as if they were hallucinating. The world in front of them seemed to have returned to the primordial chaos before the heavens were split open. As Long Xingchuan unsheathed his sword, the first ray of light appeared and broke through the darkness. It was as if a primordial scene had been created, and the world was stabilized. A world of creation had finally appeared in the world. Although Prince Xianzong felt that Long Xingchuan's aura was extraordinary, he was still filled with confidence. Although he was Huanchen's son, he was gradually surpassing his father. Within the dragon race, he was viewed as a rising star with even more potential than his father. Currently, Prince Xianzong was already equivalent to a human profound immortal sovereign with 4 chis. He was only a step away from becoming a human, virtual, immortal demon race small saint. Other than his father, Dragon King Huanchen, and the other small saints of the demon race, Prince Xianzong was the undisputed #1 expert among all the demon race experts present today. When he saw Long Xingchuan draw his sword, his first reaction was to attack. Even Crown Prince Xianzong did not dare to underestimate Long Xingchuan's sword. However, Long Xingchuan had yet to cross the river. He wanted to make the first move while Long Xingchuan was accumulating power. He wanted to destroy Long Xingchuan's seemingly astonishing sword attack. No matter how strong the attack was, it would only be effective if it could hit the opponent. Prince Xianzong thrust his spear at Long Xingchuan. He was confident that he was faster than Long Xingchuan. Dragon King Huanchen, who was originally dealing with the pill hall, turned his head around in shock. Upon seeing this scene, his expression changed drastically. Xianzong retreat. Dragon King Huanchen hurriedly let go of the pill hall's radiance. He turned around and pounced towards Long Xingchuan and Prince Xianzong. He cultivates in the prime clear sheath edge nurturing sword art. This is the first sword after unsheathing its edge. Prince Xianzong Song's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. He was a top-notch expert who had ascended to the demon immortal realm for thousands of years. He had experienced hundreds of battles. He naturally knew that after a prime clear martial art practitioner nurtured their sword, the first sword after unsheathing its edge would far surpass the normal standard. It was already too late to retreat. Prince Xiansong could only strengthen his will and unleash his full strength. He didn't care about anything else. However, although Long Xingquan's speed of drawing his sword seemed slow, the speeding abyss sword in his hand had already been unsheathed when his enemy's attack was about to reach him. The concept of time and the definition of fast and slow were all blurred at this moment. There was only an absolute sword standing proudly in the sky, a sword light that seemed like it could split the heavens flashed across the void. The spear in Prince Xiansong's hand broke apart. In an instant, his vision was filled with white. He was completely occupied by the resplendent sword light, and he couldn't see anything else. In the cosmos, Dragon King Huanshan arrived at this crucial moment. He clawed at the void, and rays of golden light condensed into the shape of a dragon, blocking between the sword light and Prince Xiansong. The sonorous voice of the great Tao and the nine heavens dragon roar resounded at the same time, intimidating the surroundings. However, Long Xingquan's sword broke through all obstructions. It surged forward with the momentum of splitting the heavens and earth. The resplendent sword light silently pierced through the golden dragon, formed by Dragon King Huanshan's strength. The brilliance around the golden dragon that seemed to be spanning across the universe instantly dimmed, as if it had been slain. After the sword light slayed the dragon, its momentum didn't stop. It continued forward and slashed towards Prince Xiansong's body. Prince Xiansong let out a blood-curdling scream. As the flowing light transformed, he was forced back to his original form. A huge black dragon appeared in the void. Its head was like a mountain, and its body was like a river. However, it was already slashed apart at the waist, and only half of its body was left. Dragon King Huanshan finally arrived. He blocked in front of the black dragon and forcefully received Long Xingquan's sword. It was hard for profound immortals to injure the body of 5 Chi's unification. Even so, the sword light that had already fought 2 rounds consecutively and was almost at the end of its tether still caused Dragon King Huanshan's body to sway. He was both shocked and furious. He first turned around to look at the dying black dragon behind him. The other demons were all shocked. After regaining their senses, they temporarily ignored the flowing light connecting the roving jade heavens and the pill hall and quickly surrounded Prince Xiansong. Dragon King Huanshan turned around and glared at the person in front of him. Long Xingquan pointed his sword at Dragon King Huanshan. With a sword in his hand, his expression was no longer casual and lazy. At this moment, his handsome face was filled with concentration, piety, and even fanaticism. Concentration towards the martial Tao, fanaticism towards the sword Tao. Dragon King Huanshan roared furiously. His figure shook, and he split into 9 golden dragons, which surrounded Long Xingquan. With the art of sheath edge and nurture sword, the first sword after unsheathing its edge was unstoppable. The sword intent that had been hidden for thousands of years was completely released. After that, it would return to its normal state. Currently, Long Xingquan's body was circulating with strands of immortal qi. They transformed into a mortal aura, which moved along with his sword and fought against the dragons. Righteous qi, transforming qi, clear qi, and bright qi. Currently, Long Xingquan was clearly of 4 qis fused aura. After being stuck at the true immortal realm for several thousand years, one would shock the world with a single brilliant feat one day. If he took this step forward, he would be at the peak of the mysterious immortal realm. It wasn't as if Dragon King Huanchen had never fought against a profound immortal with 4 Qis fused aura before. However, the Long Xingchuan before him had the speeding abyss sword in his hand. Sword light circulated, splitting and merging, intersecting with each other. Dragon King Huanchen's attack was actually repelled. This caused the furious Dragon King Huanchen's mind to clear up, allowing him to re-evaluate his opponent before him. Even though Long Xingchuan had already unleashed the unparalleled sharpness of the first sword, he still couldn't be underestimated. The 9 golden dragons merged into one, and Dragon King Huanchen's face turned gloomy. He calmed his mind and attacked again. He didn't use any transformations, and his attacks were straightforward. He wanted to suppress Long Xingchuan with his cultivation level and force him to face him head-on. At the same time, in the roving Jade Heavens, the Vine Sovereign Taoist Cloud Conquest and the other experts flew out one after another and arrived at the cosmic void. Remember the mobile URL. Chapter 1346. Uncle Masterlong has nurtured his sword for thousands of years. Now that he's out of seclusion, his radiance is shining across the universe. Within the pill hall, the sword sovereign, Yu Jinbei, was full of praise. As Yan Zhaoga's main body controlled the pill hall, he said, "Indeed." When senior apprentice Granduncle Long unleashed his first sword after attaining the profound immortal realm, most grand virtual immortals would have to evade his attack. Otherwise, even if they weren't injured, they would still be beaten to a pulp. Most people only cared about the fact that Long Xingchuan was inferior to his wife, Gao Qingxian. They even treated it as a joke. Long Xingchuan did not care about this. He was usually lazy and carefree, living in seclusion. It was easy for others to look down on him. However, if one were to think about it, how could a person without any temper or ability as a successor of the Jade Clear lineage possibly run to the prime Clear Jade roving heavens to compete in the sword back then? It was fine if the ignorant were fearless. The problem was that Long Xingchuan's sword arts had swept across the roving Jade Heavens, causing Zhang Buxu, Taoist Cloud Conquest, and the other prime Clear experts to be utterly humiliated. He was only defeated when Gao Qingxian made her move. According to the sword sovereign Yu Jinbei's words, Long Xingchuan was usually carefree and lazy. However, when he was fighting someone with a sword in his hand, his fanaticism and stubbornness towards victory was even greater than Yan Xintong's. Exchanging pointers was one thing, but if it was a battle with an enemy, the sword would either kill or injure, and there would be no mercy. Yan Zhaoga's previous understanding of this had not been sufficiently direct. However, after witnessing Crown Prince Xianzong's fate, there was no need to say anything more. As for Long Xingchuan's strength, Yan Zhaoga had praised the Cloud Conquest Emperor when he was searching for the Pill Hall. Among the true immortal experts that he knew, the Cloud Conquest Emperor could be ranked within the top 3. At that time, the strongest true immortal in Yan Zhaoga's eyes wasn't Qin Qianhua, who had just ascended to the immortal realm, Long Xueji, who had shown off his abilities, or the famous female emperor Jie Mingkong, who had shocked the world. It was this martial granduncle who had kept a low profile and nurtured his sword for thousands of years. In the eyes of a few people, he had become a joke. The Dragon Spring Emperor, Long Xingchuan. I'll leave this to Zhaoga and the others. I'm going to help as well. Although he wasn't on good terms with the roving Jade Heavens Vine Sovereign, Taoist Cloud Conquest, and the other experts, Yu Jinbei temporarily put aside his personal grudges and left the Pill Hall. Within the cosmic void outside of the Pill Hall, Long Xingchuan was facing the demon race's little saint, Dragon King Huanchen, who was equivalent to the Taoism's heavenly monarch. At this moment, Dragon King Huanchen was no longer impatient. He fought steadily and steadily, advancing step by step. He wanted to suppress his opponent with his cultivation realm. At that moment, although Long Xingquan's eyes were filled with excitement, his movements were still calm and orderly. While resisting the suppression caused by the sonorous voice of the great path when his opponent attacked, he changed his sword light from hardness to softness to contend with his opponent. On the other side, the Vine Sovereign and Taoist Cloud Conquest from the roving Jade Heavens, as well as the Sword Sovereign, Yu Jinbei from the Pill Hall, were fighting against the other demons. Other than Prince Xianzong, there were still many strong demons here. But now, they too had to face Taoist Cloud Conquest, who had nurtured his sword for thousands of years. Although his momentum was inferior to Long Xingquan's, Taoist Cloud Conquest sword was unstoppable. A Taoist profound immortal stage demon, immortal with immortal chi fusion aura, was sliced into two by Taoist Cloud Conquest sword. The sword light didn't stop there. It formed a sweeping momentum and stirred up a wave of blood. Dragon King Huanshan was forced into a corner. He temporarily abandoned Long Xingquan and was forced to take on the attack for the other demons. On the other side, Long Xingquan's sword light surged as he seized the opportunity to counterattack Dragon King Huanshan. Taoist Cloud Conquest also brandished his sword light and created several sword formations, trapping Dragon King Huanshan and Long Xingquan within. With a wave of his hand, a stream of light enveloped Long Xueji and Gao Xuebua and flew towards Yu Jinbei. Then Yu Jinbei sent them into the Pill Hall. Although the sonorous voice of the Great Path released by the demon race Small Saint had suppressed the two true immortals, they were still safely sent into the Pill Hall after being transmitted. A furious dragon roar resounded. Dragon King Huanshan quickly tore apart the sword formations and charged out. Under his command, the remaining demon clan powerhouses attacked in unison and launched a counterattack. Long Xingquan, Yu Jinbei, and the others' expressions remained unchanged. They took on the attacks and contended with the demons. On the other side, the 100-eyed demon lord was both shocked and furious as he witnessed the roving Jade Heavens being connected to the Pill Hall. At this moment, the sword chi of the roving Jade Heavens sword domain that was fighting against him previously started weakening. However, a green-clothed woman walked out from within. As she strode forward, the illusory and profound sonorous voice of the Great Path resounded, continuously neutralizing the pressure brought by the 100-eyed demon lord and Dragon King Huanshan. Today, the former profound sovereign had taken the final step and successfully passed the profound origin tribulation, achieving the 5 Chi's unification physique, and stepping into the grand virtual immortal realm. After Suo Mingzhang, she was the second heavenly monarch among the new Taoism martial art practitioners since the Great Calamity. Roving Jade Heavens, sword reversing 2 extremities, Gao Qingxian. She's also Taoist Chuanyi's disciple. The 100-eyed demon lord didn't hold back. He tapped his finger, and a dark yellow sword light pierced towards Gao Qingxian. Gao Qingxian didn't stop and continued moving forward. She immediately retaliated with her sword. The sharp and resolute green sword light slashed through the air and sliced the dark yellow sword light apart. Although it's the immortal extermination sword, her attainments in this sword art are very high. The 100-eyed demon lord frowned and dispelled his belittling thoughts. Then, a radiance immediately lit up above his head. The 100-eyed demon lord was a demon immortal bigwig who attained Tao during the journey to the West era. Although he still couldn't pass through the origin heavenly tribulation and become a demon race great sage, his strength was so strong that apart from Fuluozi, none of the demon race experts who came to the Tao universe were his opponents. 2 radiances flickered above his head. With the duo flower's converged crown, the 100-eyed demon lord's strength instantly skyrocketed. His body became even more indestructible, and his strength was boundless. His 5 Chi's unification immortal essence became even stronger. He unleashed another sword. The sword light was akin to a dark yellow heavenly river. It almost traversed across the entire Tao universe and slashed towards Gao Qingxian. Not only did the grand virtual immortal realm signify the grand virtual immortal realm's advancement, but it also signified the growth of his strength. Gao Qingxian, who had just ascended to the virtual immortal realm, wasn't only facing a veteran demon race small saint, but also a duo flowers converged crown expert. Go! Gao Qingxuan's expression remained unchanged as she faced a powerful opponent. Suddenly, another figure appeared beside her, without any signs. It was another Gao Qingxian. No matter if it was aura or appearance, it was the same as her original self. Standing here, there were two Gao Qingxian. There was no difference between the real and the fake. Both of their actions were exactly the same. Both of them advanced forward and unleashed their swords simultaneously. The one on the left had a ferocious and tyrannical sword intent, capable of annihilating everything, destroying all techniques, and manifesting the end of creation. The one on the right had a supremely high sword intent, capable of cutting through thistles and thorns and manifesting the genesis of heaven and earth. Remember the mobile version. M. Chapter 1347. The two Gao Qingxian seem to be doing their own thing. However, with one soul and two bodies, the twin swords fused together, forming a combined attack. One of them executed the head of the prime clear lineage's numinous treasure, four swords, the immortal exterminating sword. The other one was using her husband, Long Xingqiuan's jade illusory heaven-opening sword, the heaven-splitting earth-crushing sword, and the heaven-destroying earth-extinguishing sword joined forces, resonating with each other. Although it wasn't like Yendi's creation saber, which transformed into a brand new, peerless supreme martial art, Gao Qingxuan's dual swords amalgamation had undergone an unprecedented transformation. Her situation was special. She was blessed by the heavens with one soul and two bodies. When she made her move, it was as if she was a single person. This kind of tacit understanding was something that even a pair of twins couldn't achieve if they attacked together with their swords. Even if the other two had known each other for thousands of years, it would still be impossible for them to be so familiar with each other. As the sword intents from both sides intertwined, they actually vaguely formed the image of the beginning and end cycle of the world's creation. While it was not as unique and perfect as Yendi's creation saber, the sword chi and sword intent of her clone and her true self were united in resonance, as it was virtually equivalent to the strength of two of them added together, being exceptionally vigorous. Gao Qingxuan's twin swords were unleashed with unstoppable momentum. Once again, the hundred-eyed demon lord's dark yellow, heavenly river-like sword light was slashed apart. It's not an illusory fake body, but a clone that has reached the five Chi's unification's realm like the main body. Even though the hundred-eyed demon lord was an old demon with 10,000 years of experience, he was still shocked. And this sword technique, what exactly? He took another look at the pill hall and the roving jade heavens. He saw that the roving jade heavens had started to move under the guidance of the flowing light. The hundred-eyed demon Lord took a deep breath. He suddenly untied his belt and took off his black robe. After the great calamity, Daoist Chuanhe's lineage had always been on guard against the hundred-eyed demon lord, not knowing when he might come knocking on their doors. He had also investigated the characteristics of his abilities. Seeing the other party's actions, Gao Qingxian immediately recalled some related rumors. Sure enough, the white-eyed demon Lord took off his clothes and raised his hands. There were 1,000 eyes on both sides of his body, and right now they emitted a yellow mist and golden light. Dense yellow mist, like clouds spurting out from the sides of his body. Brilliant golden light, like 1,000 eyes on fire. Wherever the radiant mist went, it enveloped Gao Qingxian. being enveloped by the radiant fog, Gao Qingxian felt like she was stuck between a rock and a hard place. She couldn't even budge. She combined her two swords to open a path for herself. She regained her freedom and was able to move around in the mist of light. However, the mist of light was strange and unending. It broke and regenerated, but it still trapped her within. Gao Qingxuan's expression remained unchanged. Her main body and clones stood with their backs against each other. One was still using the immortal exterminating sword, while the other switched to using the immortal exterminating sword instead of the jade illusory heaven opening sword. Once again, the two swords joined hands to attack. This time, they didn't use any creation transformations. Instead, they used all their strength to attack. It was as if the heavens were punishing them with an attack that could destroy heaven and earth. They forcefully pierced through the fog of light and escaped from within. Although Gao Qingxian rushed out of the radiant fog, when she looked back, she saw the 100-eyed demon lord's thousands of demonic eyes still blinking continuously. The vast, radiant fog engulfed the heavens and earth, continuing to chase after her. At the same time, in the void outskirts of the Tao universe, great immortal Ru Yi and the other great demons had also arrived. However, other powerful auras also descended. As the clear glazed light emerged, a golden bodhisattva appeared. Although his entire body resembled glass and flickered with faint radiance, it wasn't the Buddha radiance commonly seen by the Buddhist Bantis in the blessed lands of the White Lotus. This radiance originated from the bodhisattva himself. It was a great bodhisattva from the Western Pure Lands, an orthodox Zen cultivator who attained the Tao. His aura was the strongest. Other than him, the auras of other people also appeared. Among them, the 9 underworld's demonic qi could be vaguely felt surging. Fuluozi and the other great demons exchanged glances and immediately acted according to their plans. Under the illumination of the moonlight, the profound frost fairy held a pestle in her hand and went against the Western Pure Lands Banti. Fuluozi, on the other hand, intimidated everyone else. At the same time, he drew a talisman in the air. The talisman projected radiance and expanded into the distance, gradually forming into a net. Upon seeing this, the Buddhist Banti from the Pure Lands frowned. Although he wasn't sure what the radiant net's function was, he had already contacted his Pure Lands reinforcements. However, as the radiant net expanded, it seemed to have shrunk the chaotic space. As a result, those who approached the net would end up crashing into it. The net seemed to be targeting the outside world, but not the inside world. The Buddhist Banti had the intention to dispel it. Unfortunately, the Jade Rabbit Demon and the profound Frost Fairy interfered with him and fought against each other. On the other side, Great Immortal Ru Yi led a group of demon race experts and rushed into the Tao universe. They were heading straight for the Pill Hall. The 100-eyed demon lord held a grudge against the roving Jade Heavens, but he didn't. The Pill Hall was Great Immortal Ru Yi's true target. You should still take it easy. Currently, within the Pill Hall, Yan Zhaoge looked at Feng, Yunsheng beside him. Continue suppressing the seal. Don't relax until the current situation stabilizes. Otherwise, if you blindly take another step forward, the devilish qi would increase, and we might not be able to deal with it. I know. Feng Yunsheng wore a white robe and held a black saber. If things really escalate to that stage, I might even become a signpost for existences like the Wood Devil to find me. As she spoke, her figure disappeared. When she reappeared, she was already outside the Pill Hall. Currently, Great Immortal Ru Yi was rushing towards the Pill Hall. When he saw Feng Yunsheng, he was stunned. Human or devil? He was slightly stunned. Then he recalled a piece of news that he heard before. You're the person who was tainted by the doomsday, heavenly devil's authority? Feng Yunsheng didn't answer. She swung her ponytail, and the cold sun divine saber in her hand roared as it rushed out of its scabbard. The vicious and ominous black devilish chi transformed into a horrifying blade and slashed towards great immortal Ru Yi. 20 years ago, the horrifying aura that seemed like the end of the world had arrived and caused the Tao universe to faintly show signs of withering had arrived once again. Moreover, it was much stronger than 20 years ago. Feng Yunsheng didn't hold back. On top of her head, an illusory radiance condensed and manifested. However, it was different from Suo Mingzhang and Gao Han in the past. It was also different from the current 100-eyed demon lord. The radiance that Feng Yunsheng condensed on top of her head was darkness. Great immortal Ru Yi didn't dare to underestimate the horrifying aura. He immediately took out his Ru Yi golden hook, and the duo flowers converged crown appeared on top of his head. His entire aura and strength skyrocketed. He swung his hook. It was violent and sharp, and it was extremely ferocious. It was like a divine bull that could carry the heavens on its back, fiercely swinging its horns at this moment. Feng Yunsheng's expression was calm, and her eyes were focused. She raised the blade high above her head and brought it down with a force that could split a mountain. She completely ignored great immortal Ru Yi's golden hook. Wherever that terrifying black blade passed, the void of the universe seemed to split into two. Violent light flashed, and the cold sun divine saber clashed with the wishful golden hook. Great immortal Ru Yi instantly felt his hand tremble, and he didn't dare to take it head on. He hurriedly tilted the hook in his hand and dodged to the side. Even so, when he took a closer look, there was already a chip on the golden hook in his hand. Remember the mobile URL, Chapter 1348. Looking at the crack on his golden hook, great immortal Ru Yi sucked in a breath of cold air. When their weapons clashed, he could even vaguely feel that Feng Yunsheng was restraining her own strength. Just from this exchange, great immortal Ru Yi's heart trembled. The aura of the doomsday heavenly devil's authority is actually this terrifying. As he thought of this, he dragged his golden hook and didn't lunge towards the pill hall anymore. Instead, he turned around and lunged towards the streams of lights that connected the pill hall and the roving jade heavens. Although his target was only the pill hall, severing the streams of lights would cause the roving jade heavens to remain within the Tao universe. The pill hall might retreat on its own. However, great immortal Ru Yi believed that Yan Zhaoge and the others wouldn't give up just like that. If he missed this opportunity, everyone would know that they intended to take the roving jade heavens along with them. If they prepared an ambush, Yan Zhaoge's chances of succeeding would be incomparably slim. Since he had made his move, he had to see the results today. Although great immortal Ru Yi's original form was that of a bull, he was extraordinarily agile. With a leap, he arrived near Dragon King Huanshan and the others. With a swing of his hook, he immediately hooked a stream of lights. However, Feng Yunsheng pointed her jet black saber and immediately chased after him. Useless fool. The 100-eyed demon Lord cursed in his heart and flew towards Feng Yunsheng. Then he opened his arms. Golden radiances and yellow mists gushed out from beneath his ribs and enveloped Feng Yunsheng. Upon seeing this, Gao Qingxian, who was previously evading the light mists, immediately turned around and attacked great immortal Ru Yi and Dragon King Huanshan. Don't even think of leaving. As the 100-eyed demon Lord sneered, the light mists permeated and enveloped almost half of the Tao universe. Wherever the light mists went, time and space seemed to be frozen. The dense yellow light mists surged everywhere, wanting to devour Feng Yunsheng and Gao Qingxian. Upon seeing this, Feng Yunsheng took in a deep breath and held the cold sun divine saber's hilt with her left hand. She held the saber with both hands and raised it above her head. Ja! Feng Yunsheng let out a sound with unknown meaning. She slashed her saber downwards. Wherever the saber lights passed by, everything would collapse. In the face of the mournful dark saber light, the dense yellow fog of light was continuously disappearing at this moment. The hundred-eyed demon lord glared at Feng Yunsheng angrily. The dark yellow mist under its ribs kept surging and replenishing itself, forming a tug-of-war with Feng Yunsheng. However, because of this, the mist of light that was originally covering the sky and earth was unable to continue spreading. Gao Qingxian didn't say much. Her main body and clone rushed towards Great Immortal Ru Yi and Dragon King Huanchen, respectively, after witnessing the battle between Gao Qingxian and the hundred-eyed demon lord. Dragon King Huanchen didn't dare to be negligent. He turned around and faced Gao Qingxian, who he didn't know if she was her original self or clone. His opponent executed the clear lineage's numinous treasure four swords. His sword arts were superb, causing Dragon King Huanchen to be in dire straits. His back was drenched in sweat. On the other side, the duo flower's converged crown Great Immortal Ru Yi was facing the other Gao Qingxian with relative ease. However, against Great Immortal Ru Yi, Gao Qingxian wasn't as forceful as she was against the hundred-eyed demon lord. She didn't use any of her other sword techniques, and only used the immortal trapping sword manual. A smear of red light flickered in the void. It was unpredictable. Even Great Immortal Ru Yi, who was known for his agility, couldn't capture its traces within a short period of time. Not only is she able to switch between various sword arts at will, but she's also able to grasp the essence of various things after switching to a single sword art. It's truly exquisite. Great Immortal Ru Yi felt a slight headache. The incongruence Divine Mother's lineage has produced an impressive junior. His foundation was much more solid than Gao Qingxuan's, allowing him to take the initiative in their battle. Great Immortal Ru Yi intended to attack the Pill Hall, Long Xingquan, the Vine Sovereign, and the others. However, Gao Qingxuan's speed and agility weren't any inferior to his, making it hard for him to escape. On the other side, Long Xingquan, the Vine Sovereign, Yu Xinbei, and Taoist Cloud Conquest were fighting against the other demon race experts. 4 sword lights traversed the universe. Despite being outnumbered, they weren't at a disadvantage at all. They even chased after the group of great demons, forcing them away from the light stream connecting the roving Jade Heavens and the Pill Hall. The 4 of them were all sword cultivators. Their attacks were ruthless, and their attacks were sharp. In just a few moves, their opponents were already suffering casualties. Currently, the White Jade Palace, which was enveloped by the purple chi and golden radiances, remained calm. Through the cable-like light streams, it started pulling the entire roving Jade Heavens closer to itself. The palace's door was already opened. Outside, and within the door, there was a universe. The entire roving Jade Heavens started transforming into light streams. The huge world transformed into light streams and entered the Pill Hall's cosmos through the door. Such a huge commotion shook the entire Tao universe. No matter where it was, it could be felt. Outside of the Tao universe, Fuluazi and the Jade Rabbit Demon, who were closer to the other forces, had a solemn expression on their faces. Anxiety couldn't help but appear within their gazes. The changes happening within the Tao universe clearly indicated that Yen Zhaoge's plan to sweep away the roving Jade Heavens was progressing smoothly. The hundred-eyed demon lord and the other great demons couldn't stop it. The light net extended by Fuzi's hand was already densely stacked together, gradually forming a humongous bird's nest that contained countless spaces. Within the bird's nest, there were already several rays of golden radiances flickering. They were all Buddhism bigwigs from the Western Pure Lands who received the news and rushed over to provide reinforcements. They traversed through space and rushed over to the Tao universe. However, the paths in front of them were all connected to the bird's nest. They wouldn't be able to break through within a short period of time. Fuluozi, who had temporarily obstructed the Western Pure Lands reinforcements, couldn't escape. He had no choice but to stay where he was. He sighed, "Fairy, go and help me." As he spoke, radiances surfaced above his head. Then he helped the Jade Rabbit Demon to obstruct the Buddhism Bodhisattva. "Thank you, Taoist." The Jade Rabbit Demon didn't say anything else. She immediately held onto the medicine-pounding pestle and rushed into the Tao universe. After entering the Tao universe and rushing near the roving Jade Heavens, the Jade Rabbit Demon's gaze swept through the situation. She was shocked. Her gaze fell upon the pill hall. The roving Jade Heavens had already transformed into light streams and was slowly being guided into the pill hall. Shadows appeared within the void. One world after another appeared. At this moment, the boundaries of the territories became clear. Those were worlds similar to the Eight Extremities world, Vast Ocean world, Floating Life world, and others. They were the lower realms that belonged to the roving Jade Heavens. Yen Zhaoga and the others wanted to migrate the roving Jade Heavens. Naturally, the lower realms and their inhabitants would have to be brought along as well. Upon seeing this, the Jade Rabbit Demon immediately rushed towards the pill hall. Gao Qingxuan's clone, who was fighting against Dragon King Huanchen, frowned. She temporarily forced Dragon King Huanchen back with her sword and obstructed the Jade Rabbit Demon. Although Dragon King Huanchen was temporarily forced back, he quickly rushed forward again. Gao Qingxian and her clone unleashed the immortal trapping sword and obstructed him. However, with 3 demon race small saints advancing together, great immortal Ru Yi managed to find an opening. He shook off Gao Qingxian and rushed towards the pill hall. Remember the mobile version's website, Chapter 1349. While Dragon King Huanchen and the Jade Rabbit Demon were busy with Gao Qingxian, great immortal Ru Yi freed himself and rushed towards the pill hall. Seeing this, Feng Yunsheng waved her cold sun divine saber, dispelling the dark yellow radiant fog, and chased after great immortal Ru Yi. However, the 100-eyed demon lord went all out. A sword appeared in his hand, and he slashed it towards Feng Yunsheng. Feng Yunsheng blocked it with her saber. The thousands of eyes beneath the 100-eyed demon lord's ribs shone together, and yellow fog filled the sky, obstructing Feng Yunsheng's path. Long Xingchuan, Yu Jinbei, and the others went forward to obstruct great immortal Ru Yi. However, the other demon race experts that followed the Jade Rabbit Demon into the Tao universe had also rushed forward. Even the group of demons that had suffered heavy casualties under Dragon King Huanchen's hands pounced forward once more under Dragon King Huanchen's howl. Great immortal Ru Yi swung his golden hook. Like a bull's horn, it repelled Long Xingchuan's swordlight. Then, he rushed towards the vicinity of the pill hall. Rays of golden light soared into the sky from the pill hall and shot towards him. Great immortal Ru Yi swung his golden hook in a circle, sweeping away the rays of golden light. Then he extended his hook. The sharp blade that was flickering with golden radiance instantly became gigantic. It sliced apart the purple clouds and landed on the white jade palace. After hooking the pill hall, great immortal Ru Yi immediately pulled it back. One end of the Ru Yi golden hook was tiny, and it landed in great immortal Ru Yi's hand. The other end of the sharp blade hooked onto the colossal pill hall that was as huge as a city in the divine world. However, as great immortal Ru Yi pulled it, the huge pill hall started shaking and approached him. Gao Qingxian pointed her sword at him. The sword sovereign instantly transformed into thousands of streaks of light, rushing towards Dragon King Huanshan. Dragon King Huanshan's figure transformed into light and split into 9, evading Gao Qingxuan's sword momentum. Red radiance flashed around Gao Qingxuan's body, and she immediately disappeared. Without any delay, when the dark red sword light flickered again, she had already caught up to Great Immortal Ru Yi and slashed down. Great Immortal Ru Yi wielded his hook with one hand, while his other hand turned around and attacked Gao Qingxian. With the twin flowers converged crown above his head, his strength and vitality far surpassed that of ordinary demon race small saints and Taoism heavenly monarchs. Even if his other hand was contending against the pill hall, his other hand still managed to block Gao Qingxuan's sword momentum. After Gao Qingxuan's attack missed, Dragon King Huanshan had already made a comeback and ruthlessly attacked Gao Qingxuan's back. The extremely tough and sharp true dragon claws were akin to indestructible spears. They were about to pierce through Gao Qingxuan's chest. Gao Qingxian didn't evade. Her index and middle fingers formed a sword. Other than the streaks of black sword lights, traces of white qi and faint green radiances were also present on her fingertips. The tip of the sword pointed at Dragon King Huanshan's claw. The firm and fierce dragon claw suddenly trembled. The pale golden demon essence that flickered on the dragon claw immediately began to disintegrate upon contact with the azure sword ray. It scattered into golden dust and vanished in the wind. When the deadly white gas landed on the seemingly indestructible dragon scales, the dragon scales immediately exploded. The black sword light crisscrossed and slashed at Dragon King Huanshan's flesh. Then it wrapped around him and spun around. One of his claws was instantly sliced off by Gao Qingxuan's sword. Dragon King Huanshan let out a deep groan. Gao Qingxuan's ruthless sword edge didn't stop there. After slicing off Dragon King Huanshan's finger, the sword edge continued descending, slashing towards Dragon King Huanshan. This dragon race small saint, whose strength was equivalent to a Taoism heavenly monarch, suddenly flipped his body and opened his mouth. A black current gushed out, instantly turning into a vast ocean that filled the void. As the pitch-black ocean obstructed Gao Qingxuan's sword edge, Dragon King Huanshan also turned into a stream of light and sank into the ocean. With the help of the water escape, he managed to evade Gao Qingxuan's attack. At least, his dragon claw wouldn't be sliced off by his opponent. Gao Qingxian didn't plan on chasing after him after forcing him to retreat. Instead, she turned around and continued searching for Great Immortal Ru Yi. However, the boundless ocean had already set off monstrous waves that covered the heavens and covered the earth as they crashed towards her. Most of the demon race had their own innate abilities. When fighting against humans, they could be of great use. For example, the 100-eyed demon lord's innate abilities were extremely useful. To a certain extent, they even surpassed his supreme martial arts. Although Dragon King Huanshan's abilities weren't as tyrannical as the 100-eyed demon lord's Thousand Eyes golden light, he had his own unique abilities. Gao Qingxian wasn't afraid of him at all. However, she was annoyed to be entangled by him. In the current dangerous battle situation, in just a few breaths of time, there were thousands of changes. Great Immortal Ru Yi made use of the opportunity of the other great demons delaying Feng, Yunsheng, Gao Qingxian, and the others to attack the pill hall. One of his hands held onto the Ru Yi golden hook and hooked onto the pill hall, preventing it from moving or retreating. He extended his other hand, which instantly transformed into a sky-covering palm and clawed towards the pill hall. Within the pill hall, within the purple divine pavilion, Yan Zhaoge was nowhere to be seen. Only Yan Di, Nie Jingshen, Long Xueji, Gao Xuebua, and Mars Halberd, who had manifested his human form, were present. The 5 of them sat in a formation. Yendi sat in the center, while the other 4 stood at the 4 corners. The formation they formed was the formation used to subdue the hall's spirit, awaken Sky, during the fight for the Pill Hall. Although the members had changed, the newly joined Long Xueji and Gao Xuebo were already familiar with the formation's transformations. They could even coordinate with the other 3. Above Yendi's head, a huge pill furnace floated. It was the profound sky purple golden furnace. Within the profound sky purple golden furnace, Yen Zhaoga sat quietly. His eyes were closed, and he didn't speak or move. It was as if he was in a deep slumber, and also as if his soul had flown away. Currently, the person suppressing the situation within the profound sky purple golden furnace seemed to only be a shell. He seemed to have no thoughts or thoughts. My opponents outnumber me. I have no choice but to take a risk. Yen Zhaoga's voice resounded within the purple divine pavilion. However, it didn't originate from within the profound sky purple golden furnace. His voice seemed to have spread throughout the entire purple divine pavilion and the entire pill hall. Only the 5 people within the pavilion could hear his words. When I make my move, the pill hall will inevitably tremble. I have no choice but to request the 5 of you to form a formation and suppress it for me, said Yen Zhaoga. It would have been fine if the inner hall's universe did not contain so many worlds, but now it seemed to be carrying countless shackles and burdens. If they wanted to unload their burdens and break out of the encirclement, they naturally couldn't destroy the peace of many worlds, let alone abandon them here. However, this was not a problem for Yen Zhaoga. The 5 people in the formation smiled and said, "Just do it." "Good." Yen Zhaoga laughed loudly, and his laughter resounded throughout the entire purple divine pavilion. Outside the pill hall, just as great immortal Ru Yi's palm was about to land on the top of the white jade palace, the white jade palace suddenly shone brightly. An unprecedentedly powerful aura emanated from it. Then, an unimaginable scene appeared in front of everyone outside. The radiance emitted by the pill hall changed from pure gold to purple gold. The purplish golden radiance condensed into an arm. It raised its palm towards the sky and caught great immortal Ru Yi's hand. As great immortal Ru Yi was startled, radiance condensed above the pill hall. A second arm extended out of nowhere and slammed onto his forehead. Remember the mobile URL? Chapter 1350. These 2 palms came too suddenly and caught great immortal Ru Yi off guard. The second palm landed on great immortal Ru Yi's head, causing him to see stars and his head to bleed. As the world spun, his figure rolled backwards. He couldn't even hold on to the Ru Yi golden hook that was hooked onto the pill hall. After rolling on the ground, he finally regained his footing. Great immortal Ru Yi's eyes were filled with stars, and he raised his head with difficulty. Above the pill hall, purple gold radiance was shining nonstop. Other than the 2 arms, a more complete humanoid body was starting to appear. The facial features couldn't be distinguished yet, but the outline of the head was gradually becoming clearer. At first, only the upper body was visible. The waist seemed to have sunk into the pill hall below. Then, the huge body started growing taller, and the purple gold radiance condensed its lower body. In the end, it became a giant that stepped on the void and stood above the pill hall. Pill hall's hall spirit, the jade rabbit demon, from afar was shocked. Didn't they say that it perished? Even if it reincarnated, it shouldn't be this fast. Great immortal Ru Yi stared at the pill hall angrily. It's just a silver spearhead. It looks good, but it's useless. He let out a low roar, and his figure flashed. He instantly appeared in front of the pill hall and struck towards the purple gold giant with his palms. Although great immortal Ru Yi's face was covered in dirt from that palm strike, He knew that it was mostly because his opponent had caught him off guard that he was at a disadvantage. Although the palm was ruthless, he was sure that his opponent's strength was still limited. Otherwise, he would be in a worse state after suffering that blow to his head. This time, Great Immortal Ru-Yi was fully focused and attacked with both hands. One hand was like a hammer walking in a straight line. It was ferocious but not reckless. It could change at any time, alternating between real and fake. The other hand was like a hook, walking sideways and in an arc. It looked gentle, but it was also a sharp killing move. It could reach its target at any time. As the melody continued, it surrounded the giant formed by the purple-gold radiance in the center, forcing his opponent to have nowhere to run. He could only receive his attack head-on. Great Immortal Ru-Yi wanted to force his opponent to fight him head-on and suppress his opponent with greater strength. However, in the next moment, his eyes widened. The human figure formed by the purplish-gold radiance looked frail at first, but after it stabilized, more purplish-gold radiance gathered. Rays of light intertwined and condensed, turning into a purple-gold full-body armor that covered the giant's body. First, it was the back armor and the breastplate, then the abdomen armor, the leg suspenders, and the knee skirt hanging on the left and right sides of the waist. As the giant raised his hands, the purple-gold radiance condensed, and the armbands that protected his shoulders and arms also appeared. He raised his hands, one palm striking and the other chopping, accurately parrying Great Immortal Ru-Yi's attacks from both sides. His palm was the flipping sky seal, and his fist was the sky-splitting halberd. Then, under the dumbfounded gaze of Great Immortal Ru-Yi, another protection appeared on the giant's body. His head was covered by a hood, and the radiance on his chest reached its peak. Finally, it transformed into a heart-protecting mirror. After donning the battle armor, the purple-golden giant's figure expanded rapidly, turning into a towering giant. His figure was even bigger than the celestial city like Pill Hall itself. Overseer of heaven, awakened benevolent guardian deity. This was the true form of the awakened sky palace's hall spirit, manifesting itself to protect itself and fight against external enemies. In the past, the hall's spirit, awakened sky, was damaged by the great calamity and couldn't manifest such a form. Now, it had reappeared on Yanjiaoge. Great Immortal Ru-Yi was the first person to experience it after the great calamity. Not only did it reappear, but it was also different from before the great calamity. The Pill Hall didn't have its own consciousness and could only be operated mechanically. Now, under Yanjiaoge's control, he had successfully fused his understanding of martial arts into it. This purple-golden giant was formed by the fusion of Yanjiaoge's soul and the Pill Hall. The powerful palm and fist not only intercepted Great Immortal Ru-Yi's attacks, but also rotated the cyclic heavenly seal with his left hand, causing Great Immortal Ru-Yi's right hand to change direction, and collided with Great Immortal Ru-Yi's left hand. This guardian deity freed his right hand and punched Great Immortal Ru-Yi's head again. It was the same punch, but the power contained within it was much more vigorous and violent than before. Great Immortal Ru-Yi's entire body rolled backwards. As he was rolling, he lost his human form and reverted back to his original form. A giant bull the size of a star was sent tumbling backward. When the 100-eyed demon lord, Dragon King Huanshan, and the jade rabbit demon saw it, their hearts trembled. When they looked over, they saw the guardian deity's entire body flickering with purple-golden radiance. His facial features were slowly becoming clearer. It was no longer ethereal and unpredictable. It was clearly Yanjiaoge's appearance. The Overseer of Heavens, awakened benevolent guardian deity, appeared and exchanged a few blows with Great Immortal Ru-Yi. The Pill Hall's main body shook violently. The various worlds within the hall's cosmos started becoming unstable, as if they were reverting back to their original form and rushing out of the hall. The roving jade heavens and the various lower realms that were being absorbed into the hall's cosmos were shaking as if they were reverting back to their original form and no longer entered the hall's cosmos. However, at the center of the pill hall's cosmos, countless rays of radiance flew out from the purple divine pavilion's nebula light cluster. They were like chains that connected the various worlds. After being connected by these chains, rays of purple golden radiance were emitted from the purple divine pavilion. After the various worlds were coated with a layer of purple golden radiance, they became stable once again. The various worlds within the cosmos regained their tranquility. As for the roving jade heavens and the other worlds, they resumed their advancement and were absorbed into the pill hall in an orderly manner. Within the purple divine pavilion, the formation continued to take effect, allowing the pill hall to maintain its fragile balance while Yen Zhaoge was fighting. Within the profound sky purple golden furnace, Yen Zhaoge's body was still sitting in a lotus position. He didn't speak or move, nor did he release any aura. His soul was currently reversing the pill hall's hall spirit reincarnation technique, temporarily replacing it and transforming into the hall spirit, manifesting as the overseer of heaven's awakened benevolent guardian deity. The tall giant donned a full body armor as if he was a heavenly general. He stood above the pill hall and struck the jade rabbit demon with his palm. The jade rabbit demon was currently fighting against Gao Qingxian. Upon seeing this, she could only evade. Once Gao Qingxian found an opening, she immediately retaliated. While she was proficient in the immortal trapping sword, her previous opponents, Great Immortal Ru Yi and the Jade Rabbit Demon, were also proficient in space-time shifting. Their movements were nimble and they couldn't be underestimated. Previously, in order to obstruct the few demon race small saints that were besieging the pill hall, Gao Qingxian and her clone could only act separately in order to expand the defensive perimeter. Now that Yen Zhaoge had finally completed the ritual and manifested as the pill hall's guardian deity, Gao Qingxian no longer had any worries. Her main body and her clone stood on the left and right, combining their swords and attacking the weakest of the three demon race small saints, Dragon King Huanshan. The heaven-opening sword and the heaven-exterminating sword appeared once again. They transformed into a surging torrent that could topple the mountains and overturn the seas, pressuring towards the enemy with an unstoppable momentum. Remember the mobile version's website. Chapter 1351. Dealing with Gao Qingxian alone had already exhausted Dragon King Huanshan. Seeing two Gao Qingxian rushing towards him, Dragon King Huanshan had no choice but to flee. He opened his mouth, and a boundless black sea gushed out once again. Then he rushed into it and escaped with the help of the water. Even so, Gao Qingxuan's overwhelming slash still forcefully split the Black Sea apart and injured him. If Dragon King Huanshan didn't retreat without hesitation, he would have lost half his life even if he didn't die. After succeeding, Gao Qingxian didn't continue pursuing him. Instead, she immediately turned around to assist Feng Yunsheng against the strongest demon here, the Hundred-Eyed Demon Lord. As expected of the Hundred-Eyed Demon Lord's strength, the 1,000 eyes beneath his ribs continuously spewed out golden radiance and yellow fog. It didn't show any signs of weakening, as if it was unending. This innate ability of his was even more useful than everything else he had learned. However, the Hundred-Eyed Demon Lord was also grumbling in his heart. Feng Yunqing's doomsday saber was even more sinister, bizarre, and tyrannical than his innate ability. The Hundred-Eyed Demon Lord could still hold on and continuously unleash his abilities, releasing golden radiance and yellow fog. However, as Feng Yunsheng slashed down with her saber, the golden radiance would regenerate and replenish itself. The range of her attacks didn't seem to be shrinking at all. However, This ability's effects of freezing time and space and injuring one's mental state were faintly deteriorating. The quantity didn't decrease, but the quality did. Compared to the golden radiance being dispelled, the hundred-eyed demon lord felt even more terrified and heartache. That meant that his innate divine ability was actually being weakened and disintegrated from its foundation. Although the speed wasn't fast, it seemed to be irreversible. The horrifying saber edge that destroyed everything and ended everything caused the hundred-eyed demon lord to be extremely fearful. What he was even more fearful of was Feng Yunxing's sharpness getting denser and denser. Her strength was actually showing signs of increasing, although it was accompanied by an unstable state of losing control. Even if she lost control, he was still the hundred-eyed demon lord's first target. Thinking about this, a hint of ferocity flashed through the hundred-eyed demon lord's eyes. He spread his arms and continuously circulated the golden radiance and yellow fog. At the same time, the sword in his hand trembled and was tossed up. Then it turned into a majestic sword light that descended and slashed towards Feng Yunsheng. The golden light seal began to condense further, focusing on Feng Yunsheng and loosening its control over the surroundings. As a result, Feng Yunsheng's saber gleam sliced through the smoke and clouds and slashed towards the hundred-eyed demon lord. The hundred-eyed demon lord did not evade. Instead, he met her attack with an attack. He wanted to heavily injure Feng Yunsheng here and now, so that he could not delay any longer. This great monster, who had previously roared arrogantly through a region in the last great era, was now acting viciously towards his enemy and viciously towards himself. He only wished to defeat Feng Yunsheng with a full-force strike. If Feng Yunsheng were to defend herself with her saber, it would fall into his trap, and he would be able to seize the initiative. Feng Yunsheng could feel the changes in the hundred-eyed demon lord's attacks, but her expression did not waver. She met the hundred-eyed demon lord's attacks head-on. As the sword and saber clashed, she had already injured the hundred-eyed demon lord. There was a golden light under the hundred-eyed demon lord's ribs. The saber finally landed on his shoulder. Immediately, black gas overflowed, and a blue-black demonic flame ignited. It was hard for the hundred-eyed demon lord to extinguish it even when he circulated his demonic primordial energy. On the other side, the guardian divinity formed by Yen Zhaoge's soul fusing with the pill hall was still standing in the skies above the pill hall. He struck his palm out from afar. The purplish-golden radiance streaked across the cosmic void and landed by Feng Yunsheng's side. The golden radiance and yellow fog that filled the skies collided with the purplish-golden radiance. Although it didn't shatter, it shook for a while. Under the envelopment of the golden radiance and yellow fog, Feng Yunsheng couldn't move at all. She had already tilted her body slightly and was prepared to receive the hundred-eyed demon lord's attack. As the fog shook, her figure instantly loosened. In the nick of time, she changed her position, and the dark yellow sword light that resembled a silver river brushed past her. The hundred-eyed demon lord wasn't willing to let it go. With a thought, the sword light that flew out of his hand changed its direction and continued slashing towards Feng Yunsheng. However, with this pause, Feng Yunsheng had gained sufficient time to block the sword light with her saber. The hundred-eyed demon lord let out a long sigh towards the sky. He turned his head around and saw Gao Qingxian retreating after repelling Dragon King Huanshan. She pointed her sword at the jade rabbit demon again. Sword lights covered the skies and surged like raging tides. In the skies above the pill hall, purplish-golden radiance flickered. A giant that resembled a heavenly deity sat in the center. He launched another attack from afar, assisting Gao Qingxian in attacking the jade rabbit demon. Although the jade rabbit demon's strength surpassed Dragon King Huanshan, she could only retreat helplessly. On the other hand, Great immortal Ru Yi, who was previously beaten into his original form by Yan Zhaoge, let out a furious roar filled with pain. This old bull demon was both hurt and enraged. His eyes were completely bloodshot as he let out a deep and furious roar. His original form, which was already humongous to begin with, grew even bigger. It was as if he was an eternal divine mountain that suppressed the heavens. Heavenly law's embodiment. The colossal bull lowered its head and aimed its two horns towards the pill hall. Its four hooves galloped forward, and with a momentum that could shatter the cosmos, it slammed towards Yan Zhaoge's overseer of heavens, awakened benevolent protector. At this moment, the entire Tao universe seemed to be trembling. The void was violently trampled by the bull's hooves. The colossal bull instantly arrived in front of the purplish-golden heavenly general. The purplish-golden heavenly general, who had the same appearance as Yan Zhaoge, let out a loud roar. He extended both of his hands again and accurately grabbed onto the bull's two horns. The violent impact caused the overseer of heavens, awakened benevolent protector, to tremble. The pill hall beneath trembled even more. The purple divine pavilion's grand formation almost couldn't suppress the changes within the hall's cosmos. Fortunately, the roving jade heavens and the many lower realms that it ruled over had already been absorbed by the pill hall. The white jade palace's door slammed shut. Although the pill hall's cosmos was still in chaos, the trembling of the entire pill hall finally calmed down a little. The purplish-golden heavenly general that Yan Zhaoge had transformed into also stabilized his footing. He didn't move an inch and stood within the void. He was as steady as Mount Tai and firmly blocked the colossal bull's footsteps. The frenzied bull's hooves kept on trampling, but it couldn't move forward any further. The guardian divinity that was flickering with purplish-golden radiance let out another roar. He unleashed the cyclic heavenly seal's power with both of his palms, as if it could twist the entire cosmos. At this moment, the entire Tao universe seemed to be slightly distorted. Countless tiny stars were destroyed. The colossal demon bull couldn't control its body anymore. It was flung to the side by the armored purplish-golden giant, and its body flipped over. As the demon bull cried out in pain, its strength weakened. However, Yan Zhaoge didn't let go. The purplish-golden giant held onto the bull's horns tightly with both of his hands. Then he started exerting his strength in another direction. The third roar that shook the entire universe resounded. Yan Zhaoge directly broke off one of the bull's horns. The purplish-golden giant tossed the mountain-like bull's horn to the side. His left hand was still holding onto the remaining horn of the colossal bull. He lifted his right hand that was freed up and slammed his palm towards the colossal bull's head again. Remember the mobile version. M. Chapter 1352. The palm of the overseer of heavens, awakened benevolent protector that Yan Zhaoge had transformed into, landed on the head of that massive bull. Great immortal Ru Yi's Dharma embodiment of heaven and earth was forcibly shattered by him. The giant bull's body shrunk rapidly until it was even smaller than its original form. It kept rolling on the ground, and one of its horns had been broken off. Great immortal Ru Yi didn't dare to stay any longer. He turned around and staggered as he fled madly. On the other side, the hundred-eyed demon lord also couldn't hold on any longer. With a feint, he used the golden light under his ribs to protect himself and escaped far away. The armored purple-gold giant raised his head slightly. He could feel the tremors of the Tao universe rapidly calming down. The situation was somewhat abnormal. Currently, Yan Zhaoge had fused with the Pill Hall and transformed into the Pill Hall's guardian divinity. His strength was almost equivalent to a top-notch heavenly monarch. His thoughts moved, and his senses were unprecedentedly strong. He could vaguely feel a shadow looming over his heart. It wasn't an illusion. Although the Bull Demon King and the nine-headed Great Sage were wary of the few Taoism heavenly venerables and the top experts of Buddhism who might rush over, they might also be paying attention to this side. If they had the chance to make a move, it would be hard to avoid adding variables to today's trip. Fortunately, the roving Jade Heavens had already entered the Pill Hall's cosmos. His side's plan for today had already succeeded. The gigantic purple-gold giant began to disintegrate at this moment. Gao Qingxian, Feng Yunsheng, and the others didn't chase after him. The Overseer of Heavens, awakened benevolent guardian god, was the Pill Hall's guardian god. Their range of activity had to be within the Pill Hall. At this moment, the Overseer of Heaven, awakened benevolent guardian god, had disintegrated. Even if they chased after him, they wouldn't have the advantage. They might even be intercepted by the Bull Demon King and the others. After meeting up with Long Xingchuan, Yushin Bei, and the others, everyone returned to the Pill Hall. The Pill Hall regained its golden radiance, and the surrounding sea of purple clouds became denser and denser. It swept up the Pill Hall and shuttled through the Tao universe. Then, it broke through the barrier of the Tao universe and re-entered the void's outskirts. In the boundless void of the outer realm, space and time were in a mess. It was difficult to determine the direction, and it was impossible to distinguish between up and down. If they didn't agree on a specific location beforehand, it was possible for them to go in different directions when they came out from the same place, and the distance between them would be unknown. But it was also possible that they would come out from different directions tomorrow and coincidentally bump into each other. Fortunately, Yan Zhaoga and the others were quite lucky. After leaving the Tao universe, they didn't encounter Fuluozi and the others. As such, they disappeared within the vast space. As for the other half, the 100-eyed demon lord, immortal Rui, Jade Rabbit Demon, Dragon King Huanshan, and the others regrouped with Fuluozi with much difficulty. After regrouping, the group of great demons rushed into the Tao universe again without bothering to block the Western Pure Lands Buddhist experts. Without Fuluozi's obstruction, many Buddhist experts started to gather and descended into the Tao universe. Unfortunately, this place had long since been deserted. The roving Jade Heavens, which had existed here for thousands of years, had disappeared along with the many lower realms under the roving Jade Heavens. Currently, only the world beyond worlds and a few lower realms were left in the Tao universe. The few great demons, whose heads were bleeding, were panting heavily, and their eyes had turned blood red. The 100-eyed demon lord and the Jade Rabbit Demon were still fine, but great immortal Ru-Yi and Dragon King Huanshan were both heavily injured. They were almost unable to continue fighting, but the more it was like this, the more restless the rage in their hearts became, and they wished for nothing more than to kill indiscriminately. The 100-eyed demon lord's expression was ugly as well. He felt vexed and resentful. The immortal pill that was already in our mouths escaped. The 100-eyed demon lord was so angry that he gritted his teeth. Fuluozi's expression was solemn. He sighed. We underestimated them and didn't prepare enough. The few great demons were resentful. They looked around the Tao universe with hostile gazes. When their gazes swept through the world beyond worlds, they couldn't help but pause for a moment. It's useless. We might even cause trouble. It's not worth it just to vent our anger. Fuluozi waved his hand and pulled everyone away. Now isn't the right time to start a second battlefield with the Western Pure Land of Buddhism. However, all of you are injured. We can't guarantee that they won't try to take advantage of us. Let's leave quickly. The group of demons remained silent. However, they gradually calmed down and left the Tao universe. The Western Pure Lands Buddhist bigwigs were eyeing them with hostility. However, a greater conflict didn't erupt in the end. Currently, in the world beyond worlds, on the top of the Kunlun Mountains' southern peak's Chelan Cliff, an old man had his hands behind his back. He raised his head and looked at the sky. His gaze was distant, as if it could penetrate through the boundaries of the world beyond worlds. Behind the old man, a few people stood in groups of twos and threes. They were also looking at the sky, like him. "Earthly sovereign, it seems like this tribulation has ended," said a black-clothed old man softly. He was the encompassing emperor. The old man standing in front of everyone was the exalted earth luminary, the earthly sovereign Jiangshen. He looked at the faraway void and didn't turn his head. "That's right. It has ended." Due to Yen Zhaoge removing a lot of lands from the world beyond worlds, Jiangshen had spent most of his time in the world beyond worlds to improve and adjust everything here. He wanted to ensure that the spirit qi circulation here was more stable. Although the immortal court, the blessed lands of the White Lotus, and even the Western Pure Lands' war against the demon race was extremely intense, the earthly sovereign, and the others were mostly staying in the world beyond worlds and didn't venture out. Stabilizing the situation and eliminating the influence caused by Yen Zhaoge and the others was their top priority. Because of this, everyone happened to be present at the right time and witnessed the short yet intense battle that erupted within the Tao universe. Although Jiangshen's cultivation was suppressed by Suo Mingzhang, he still retained most of his techniques and eyesight. Since he was in the same Tao universe, Jiangshen was the first to notice such a huge change happening within the roving Jade Heavens. Currently, the higher-ups of the world beyond worlds had also received the news and gathered at the Chelan Cliff. When they knew that many great demons were surrounding them, they thought that Yen Zhaoge and the others had walked right into the trap and were about to die. However, the result shocked them once again. Just like 20 years ago, in the past, Yen Zhaoge swept away half of the world beyond worlds. Now, he swept away the roving Jade Heavens. And this time, he didn't only sweep away a portion of it. Instead, he swept away the entire roving Jade Heavens. Did they really bring away the roving Jade Heavens and the many worlds under it? Asked the Western Exalt, Langqing. Jiangshen nodded. That's right. Other than a few lower realms that might be connected to the land of Tranquil Stream, those that could be moved away were all moved away. Everyone fell into silence after hearing his words. Jiangshen also stopped talking. They seemed to have witnessed the end of an era. In the past, the Kunlun 9 luminaries opened up the world beyond worlds, and the roving Jade 7 scions opened up the roving Jade Heavens. After that, they gradually formed the Tao universe. When the boundary barrier was completely stabilized, a wall was erected. Now, the scenery within the wall was no longer there. The roving Jade Heavens had left, and most of the world beyond worlds had disappeared. After the great calamity, Taoism had risen again. The Tao universe that had rested for thousands of years felt a little empty at this moment. It was as if a broken wall was in ruins. The end of an old era seemed to signify the arrival of a brand new era. P.S. The plan to adjust my sleeping schedule seems to have failed today. My vision is blurred, and I can't see the computer screen clearly. Forgive me for not staying up so late today. I'm going to sleep first. I'm still late, and I'm aware of it. Don't worry, everyone. Remember the mobile website. M. Chapter 1353. Yen Zhaoge controlled the pill hall and left the Tao universe. He flew far away and disappeared within the boundless space's outskirts. After everything had settled down, Feng, Yunsheng, Yushinbei, and the others returned to the Purple Divine Pavilion. In the pavilion, the profound sky purple golden cauldron slowly descended from the air and landed on the ground once more. Yen Di and the others all had solemn expressions on their faces, as they looked at the profound sky-purple gold furnace, looking at Yen Zhaoge, who still had his eyes closed within the furnace, seemingly completely unaware. Right now, they did not dare to relax. Yen Zhaoge used his own soul to transform into the new Hall spirit, and used it to manifest the Overseer of Heaven's awakened benevolent guardian divinity. He battled against the group of demons and caught them off guard. This unexpected move allowed them to successfully repel a group of great demons, allowing them to safely migrate the roving jade heavens and retreat before more enemies arrived. However, with this, while the others were safe, it was still not time for Yen Zhaoge to breathe a sigh of relief. Turning himself into the Hall's hall spirit was only a temporary measure. Everything would be fine if he could return to his original self. Otherwise, he would have to relive his experiences from before the great calamity. Within the profound sky-purple gold furnace, streams of golden light and purple smoke floated unceasingly. Under their contrast, Yen Zhaoge's body suddenly shook slightly. Then, in the void above the cauldron, streaks of light appeared, forming a mysterious talisman. Enveloped by the formation talisman, radiance condensed before shining on Yen Zhaoge's body. Roiling streams of light poured down in torrents. Bathed in a rain of light, Yen Zhaoge slowly opened his eyes. Quick! With a light shout, he let out a long breath of impure air and leaped out of the profound sky-purple golden furnace. He smiled at everyone and said, "Fortunately, I didn't fail my mission." The others also heaved a sigh of relief, and they looked at each other with smiles on their faces. "Then, I will begin the next step." Yen Zhaoge sat down in the meditative position by the side of the profound sky-purple gold furnace, then extended a hand and pressed it on the furnace. After the profound sky-purple golden furnace trembled, many tiny dots of light began to float in the entire purple divine pavilion like fireflies. As the number of fireflies increased, they eventually filled the entire purple divine pavilion. "Order!" Yen Zhaoge's voice resounded. With the purple divine pavilion as the center, it spread throughout the entire Hall's internal cosmos. It resounded in every corner of every world within the cosmos. Looking from the outside of the Hall, the silhouette of the white jade-like immortal palace gradually became blurry. Then it started expanding outwards continuously. The boundaries of the Hall continued to expand outwards. The boundaries gradually became blurry, and the cosmos within the Hall seemed to have suddenly expanded. Compared to the original universe within the hall, this expansion caused many empty spaces to appear. It was dark and gloomy. Affected by this, the originally stable universe within the hall became restless. The worlds contained in it lost the fragile balance they had previously maintained. They gradually turned into streams of light and moved away from the purple divine pavilion. At this moment, within the purple divine pavilion, one of Yen Zhaoge's hands was pressing on the profound sky-purple golden furnace, while the other hand's fingers were clasped together. His palm was like a saber, and he slashed forward. An invisible blade seemed to have appeared within the Hall's cosmos. It was a blade that was omnipresent and omnipotent. Every place within the Hall's cosmos was moving away from the purple divine pavilion. At this moment, every place seemed to be sliced by this blade. Where the blade reached, the boundless darkness was instantly torn apart. An extremely bright radiance was born from within. The chaotic elements of earth, water, fire, and wind followed closely behind the radiance and continuously surged forward. Within the Hall's cosmos, most of the space was like boiling water. Layers of unstable spaces appeared. Then they popped one after another like bubbles. Following that, more bubbles floated up. At the same time, the spaces formed by the Hall's buildings started moving closer to the purple divine pavilion under the guidance of the streams of light. pill storage, medicine storage, various pill refinement rooms of various sizes, the East and Southeast territories that were separated from the world beyond worlds were also moving closer to the purple divine pavilion. These worlds fused together with the nebula formed by the purple divine pavilion. Yen Zhaoge unleashed his attainments in the heaven-opening scripture to the maximum and fused it into the pill hall's transformation. After the nebula formed by the purple divine pavilion fused with the various worlds, it suddenly expanded outwards. This radiance was like a tidal wave, and it quickly swept across the entire pill hall's cosmos. The chaotic elements of earth, water, fire, and wind calmed down once again and turned into a stable cosmos void. Then spots of starlight lit up, and stars that belonged to them were born. At the original location of the purple divine pavilion, a space was independent and turned into a brand new world. Between the heavens and earth, the clear air rose, and the turbid air sank. Yin and yang intersected, and then separated. It was as if the primordial chaos had changed in an instant. In this world, the former world beyond world's 5 territories were separated into 4 central directions. In the middle of the world, a chain of immortal mountains rose. From afar, it looked similar to the broad Creed Mountain in the past. However, it was many times larger. It wasn't any inferior to the complete new Kunlun Mountain in the world beyond worlds in the past. Compared to the incomplete Kunlun Mountain in the world beyond worlds, it was even more majestic and vast. Taoism's East Peak, new Broad Creed Mountain. Within the Broad Creed Mountain range, the world beyond worlds Kunlun Mountain ranges Jade Capital Crag, Jade Sky Peak, Ingenious Flying Peak, Red Lotus Cliff, and other famous scenic spots, as well as the Immortals Cave residences, were all vivid in his mind. The main peak of the mountain range was the brand new Broad Creed Mountain. On the main peak of the mountain, a white jade palace stood tall. It was shining with golden lights, and purple smoke was lingering around it. It was the pill hall that had shrunk a lot. Currently, the pill hall's interior wasn't a wonder of the universe anymore. Instead, it looked like an ordinary building. Within the purple divine pavilion, Yen Zhaoge pressed one of his hands on the profound sky purple golden furnace. His other hand slashed the void again. Open! The brand new world where the new Broad Creed Mountain range was located slowly stabilized. Outside of this new world, the lower realms that were originally connected to the world beyond worlds were also connected to the new world. Wounds of the sky were built one after another. The cosmos formed within the pill hall was also stabilizing. An invisible boundary barrier was formed, separating this cosmos from the boundless void's outskirts. Facing this new world, the roving jade heavens that had just migrated into this cosmos was also in the same cosmos. As the external cosmos environment stabilized, the roving jade heavens operations were gradually returning to normal. The lower realms under it were also in the same state. Within the purple divine pavilion, Yen Zhaoge looked at everyone and smiled. This cosmos originated from the heavenly court's divine palace's awakened sky hall before the great calamity. Let's name it as the awakened sky cosmos. In the past, there was the world beyond worlds. Now, I'm living in the sky beyond skies. I'm willing to revive my Taoism's 3 clear lineage and add a new atmosphere to it. After saying that, Yen Zhaoge stood up from the ground and leaped into the profound sky purple golden furnace beside him. The furnace's lid closed, and the furnace's flames burned. It started tempering Yen Zhaoge's physical body. Yen Zhaoge's expression was calm, and he sat within. Although he mainly relied on the pill hall's convenience, personally establishing a world or even a cosmos allowed Yen Zhaoge's comprehension of the world's Tao to reach an unprecedented level. Currently, the furnace was tempering his physical body and the final tempering of his physical body. The timing was perfect. Today, no matter if it was humans or this world, they were going to split the heavens and earth apart, and a brand new scenery would appear. Remember the mobile website, M.